Chapter 19. The face of the elder of the Sioux family twitched. As the eldest grandson of the Sioux family, he represented the face of the Sioux family. For Sioux to appear like a dog crawling onto the stage, it could be said that he would bring glory to the Sioux family in the future. Isn't that Sioux? He's still trash. There's no way he can be compared to the third young master of the He family. Seeing Sioux appear on stage, there were many gazes of mockery that were directed at him from all around. The way that nephew Sioux enters the stage is really unexpected. The way he enters the stage is really special. He Quan, Mo Lai, and Song Ming stared at Su Jingting. Although their gazes were somewhat mocking, there was not much malice. It was just pure mockery. This nephew of mine has always walked the unconventional path. Su Jingting's face was somewhat awkward and helpless. Lu Zhen did not say anything, but his gaze, intentionally or unintentionally, landed on the body of Su who had already left the stage. He is the Su that junior sister Ra, she mentioned. Behind Protector Wang Chuanda, among the proud young men and women, there was a young girl around 16 or 17 years old. Her gaze instantly landed on Su Yi's body, and she could not help but take a second look at him. This young girl's lips were like cherry blossoms, her eyebrows like an ink painting. She was around 16 or 17 years old. Her jet black hair was tied up in a bun, with a decorative hairpin with tassels hanging from it. The fringe in front of her forehead fluttered in the wind, extremely moving. Standing in the crowd, there were many young men who were secretly sizing her up. As for the gazes from all around, Su did not seem to notice them. After landing, he swaggered towards the center of the plaza, standing together with all the young men and women who were being tested. Roughly estimating with his gaze, Su discovered that the Song family, Mo family, He family, and Su family, each family had the same number of spots. But the Lu family had a few more spots than the four great families. Su just you wait. If you have the ability, don't run away. After the test, you will be in for a good show. When the time comes, whoever runs is a coward. Mo Buffon, He-san, and Song Wuchio finally stood side by side with Su They glared fiercely at Su and whispered each other. Okay, after the test, I'll wait for you three brats. Su was helpless. Although he didn't want to bother with these three brats, it wasn't a good idea to be pestered by them all the time. It seemed that he had to teach them a lesson like he did in the past, and they would be much more obedient. Whoosh! As Su Yi's voice faded, a large man in his 30s standing beside Wang Chuanda on the balcony stood up under Su Yi's instructions. Light rushed out from the soles of his feet. With a light tap on the ground, he directly rose into the air. Boom! In an instant, light rippled beneath the burly man's feet, and a powerful aura suddenly spread out. Soon after, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the illusory image of a leopard that was approximately 3 meters long appeared beneath the middle-aged man's feet. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, an ominous glint in its eyes, as if it was real. The burly man waved his sleeves and moved, stepping on the illusory leopard. Muffled sounds rang out in the air as he slowly landed in front of the dozens of boys and girls in the plaza. The illusory leopard beneath his feet also disappeared. Yuan Shi has taken form. He's an Yuan spirit stage expert. Heavens, that's an Yuan spirit stage expert. At the sight of the scene displayed by the burly man, the gazes of the spectators in the plaza instantly trembled. There was envy, yearning, and reverence. Yuan Shi has taken form. That was the sign of an Yuan spirit stage expert. It was enough to prove that the burly man was close to reaching the Yuan spirit stage. All the stages before the Yuan spirit stage were merely the beginning stages. Only when one reached the true Yuan spirit stage would one be considered a true practitioner. After the foundation establishment stage, one would step into the Yuan spirit stage, and then the Yuan profound stage. After the Yuan profound stage was the Yuan spirit stage. At the Yuan spirit stage, Yuan Shi has taken form, which also represented that one had reached the ranks of experts. In the entire barbarian city, The number of people who could reach the Yuan spirit stage could be counted on one's fingers. The patriarchs of the various large clans were also only at the Yuan spirit stage. On the balcony, when they saw the Yuan Qi of the burly man take form, Su Jingting, Lu Zongyuan, and the others could not help but be moved. Although they were also at the Yuan spirit stage, the burly man was at most a little over 30 years old, while they were all already in their 40s or even approaching their 50s. Looking at the illusory leopard condensed beneath the burly man's feet, he had clearly stepped into the Yuan spirit stage for a long time. At the very least, he had reached the third level of the Yuan spirit stage. At this moment, how could the patriarchs of the various large clans not be shocked? At this moment, the patriarchs and upper echelons of the various large clans hoped that the younger generation of their clans would be able to enter the sacred mountain to cultivate. Yuan Qi has taken form. Yuan spirit stage. Su Yi's gaze also landed on the burly man. The Yuan spirit stage was already considered to have stepped into the ranks of experts. The test is very simple. Place your palm against the Yuan Qi testing stone, and do not think about anything else. Pour all your Yuan Qi into the Yuan Qi testing stone. At that time, we will be able to see your talent. The burly man's figure descended, briefly sweeping his gaze over the group of young boys and girls. Through some unknown method, a white stone half the height of a person appeared in his palm. The white stone was like white jade in the shape of a stone wall and completely sparkling and translucent. The burly man placed it on a stone platform that had long been prepared in the middle of the plaza. There's a space bag. Su Yi's eyes moved. This burly man definitely had a space bag on him. There was a separate space within the spatial pouch. Although the price varied, even the cheapest spatial pouch was not something that any essence spirit stage expert could afford. The sacred mountain is definitely not simple. Looking at the burly man, Su Yi wanted to go to the sacred mountain even more. Su Yi did not doubt that the burly man would casually have a space bag. Presumably, the sacred mountain was also rich and overbearing. At that time, perhaps he would be able to obtain some benefits from the sacred mountain. On the balcony, the gazes of the upper echelons of the various large families landed on the Yuan Qi testing stone. The Yuan Qi testing stone was not an ordinary object. Even in the entire barbarian city, it was difficult to possess one. Therefore, it was difficult to determine the talent of the younger generation. The test begins. Line up one by one. The burly man did not pay any attention to the shocked gazes around him and ordered everyone to prepare to begin the test. In front of the experts of the sacred mountain, these young boys and girls who were usually arrogant in the barbarian city were extremely cautious and nervous. A young boy of the Lu family took the lead. After bowing respectfully to the burly man, he followed the instructions of the burly man and placed his hand against the Yuan Qi testing stone. Yuan Qi surged from his body, and in the palm of his hand, a surge of Yuan Qi also poured into the Yuan Qi testing stone. As the young boy of the Lu family went up for the test, the noisy and boisterous crowd around the plaza once again quieted down. Gazes after gazes landed on the plaza. On the balcony, the upper echelons of the Lu family, including Lu Zongyuan, were secretly nervous. This young boy had always performed well in the Lu family, but they did not know whether he would have the chance to enter the sacred mountain. Boom! As the Yuan Qi flowed in, the Yuan testing stone on the stone table instantly emitted a glow. As if it was attracted by something, an extremely powerful aura instantly gushed out, causing the surrounding group of young men and women to involuntarily stagger back and almost fall. Walala! At the same time, on the Yuan Qi testing stone, there was a flash of gold, green, black, and blue light. But very quickly, it disappeared in a flash. On the Yuan Qi testing stone, it also calmed down. The way of the refinement stage, gold, wood, water, earth, 4 types of Yuan Qi. Talent is ordinary, not enough to enter the sacred mountain. Chapter 20. Hearing this, the youth of the Lu family instantly became dispirited, his arrogance completely gone. He could not believe that he was only a normal heavenly talent, but he had no choice but to believe it. He dejectedly retreated. On the balcony, the expressions of the upper echelons of the Liu family also changed, somewhat disappointed and regretful. At the same time, they were also worried. The performance of the youth in the Liu family was extremely good, or else he would not have been able to obtain a place to be tested. But the result of the test was that he was only a normal heavenly talent. From this, it could be seen just how difficult it was to enter the sacred mountain. On the balcony, the young boys and girls of the sacred mountain stared at the test result in the middle of the square, their expressions revealing undisguised disdain. With his age, to be able to reach the fused void stage, he could be considered decent. It's just that there are too many attributes of Yuan Qi in his body, and the attributes of his Yuan Qi are extremely chaotic. The further he goes, the more disadvantageous it is for his cultivation. Looking at the test below the balcony, Wang Chuanda smiled faintly and said to Lu Zongyuan beside him. Lu Zongyuan nodded his head, somewhat regretful at the test result. But he also understood Wang Chuanda's words. Yin and Yang and the 5 elements were the source of all living things in the world. When Yin and Yang were combined, all living things grew. All living things carried Yin and embraced Yang. Of the 5 elements, wood was for growth, fire was for heat, earth was for thick and solid, metal was for killing, and water was for cooling and nourishing. When a person was born, they were born with the attributes of the 5 elements. But for a martial artist, having 5 types of Yuan Qi was extremely disadvantageous. Our equals P genuine first be unspecified currency 5 types of Yuan Qi. The further one went, the harder it was to cultivate. It was the same as biting off more than one could chew. Therefore, generally speaking, the less Yuan Qi one had, the harder it was to cultivate in the future. Although the youth of the Liu family had reached the fused void stage and was already able to build his foundation, but there were too many attributes of Yuan Qi in his body, and they were rather chaotic. Therefore, this kind of heavenly talent could only be extremely normal. There was not much room for improvement in the future. Therefore, this kind of heavenly talent was far from being able to enter the sacred mountain. 4 types of Yuan Qi. I don't know how many I have. Within the crowd, Su Yi's eyes moved. He also knew that the more Yuan Qi one had, the better it was. The more attributes one had, the easier it was to be chaotic. It would also have a huge impact on one's future cultivation. Next, Lu Yani. Beside the Yuan testing stone, the burly man spoke again. All the young men and women who had obtained a spot had already handed in their name cards. On the cards were their age, name, and other information so that it would be easier to verify their talent. As the man's voice fell, a young girl about 17 or 18 years old walked forward. Su Yi naturally knew this young girl. She was Lu Ruashi's cousin. It was just that Su Yi didn't expect that Lu Yani had already developed into such a femme fatale after not seeing her for 3 years. Her slender body, under the adornment of the tight-colored clothes, erupted with a shocking and gentle curve. A sparkling pearl belt was casually wrapped around her waist, making her slender waist even more slender like a willow. The 2 strands of hair on her cheeks gently fluttered in the wind, adding a bit of seductive charm. Her bright eyes seemed to be flickering with an invisible temptation. At this moment, the surrounding young men all felt their mouths go dry as their gazes constantly swept over that soft and beautiful figure. Su Yi looked at Lu Yani and couldn't help but take a few more glances. In just 3 years, the little girl from back then had already reached such a level. It was truly 18 changes between childhood and womanhood. Back then, Lu Yani definitely didn't have such an attitude. While Su Yi was sizing her up, Lu Yani had already arrived in front of the Yuan testing stone. Her fair and slender palm pressed against the stone, and Yuan Qi immediately surged into the Yuan testing stone. Boom! The calm Yuan testing stone immediately released a powerful aura. The surrounding people were already prepared, so they weren't affected. In an instant, red, green, and black light surged out of the Yuan testing stone. Among them, the red light was the most dazzling, with a scarlet color. The light flickered and lasted much longer than the previous young man. The overall light was also more dazzling. Lu Yani, second layer of the essence soul realm. 3 Yuan Qi attributes: fire, water, and earth. General grade talent, qualified to enter the sacred mountain. The burly man's voice sounded. His tone was much more casual. Lu Yani is already second layer of the essence soul realm. General grade talent. This isn't strange. Lu Yani and the Su family Su Wei are the same. They have already stepped into the essence soul realm. Lu Yani can also enter the sacred mountain. The Lu family is going to prosper. Hearing such a voice, the crowd around the plaza instantly boiled. The gazes of many young men were also fixed on Lu Yani's soft and beautiful curves. There was passion in their gazes, but more than that, there was awe. Fire, water, and metal attributes. The cultivation level is also not bad. It's a pity that fire is the main attribute, but the water and fire attributes counter each other. If the water attribute is the wood attribute, and wood and fire coexist, then one's talent can directly reach the commander grade. If one soul power is strong, perhaps one can even reach the next level. On the balcony, Protector Wang Xuanda also slightly nodded his head, explaining the differences between talent. General grade talent was already qualified to enter the sacred mountain. In the future, I'll have to ask Protector Wang to take care of Yani in the sacred mountain. There was a smile on Lu Zongyuan's face. At this moment, he was also very happy. City Lord Lu is too polite. Protector Wang faintly smiled, not boasting too much. This was Lu Ruoshi's father, and not an ordinary little city lord. Congratulations to the Lu family. Congratulations, congratulations. The high-level clan leaders of the various large clans also congratulated the Lu family at this moment. They were also secretly envious. To be able to enter the sacred mountain, what this represented, everyone knew in their heart. Next to the Yuan testing stone, Lu Yani bowed to the big man in thanks, then retreated. There was a smile in her eyes, and it was even more moving. General grade talent, it's already not bad. Su Yi's eyes moved. According to what he knew, talent was divided into common grade, good grade, general grade, commander grade, king grade, emperor grade, and finally the legendary heaven grade. It was said that people who possessed heaven grade talent, when they were born, could cause a phenomenon in the world. They were destined to be the top of the world and look down on all living things. But heaven grade only seemed to exist in legends. Su Yi remembered that Lu Ruoshi seemed to have been tested to be an emperor grade talent. If that was the case, then compared to Lu Ruoshi's general grade talent, she was several levels stronger. Next, Lu Hui. Next, there were people who continued to go up for testing. Only among the remaining young men and women of the Lu family, there was no one with outstanding talent. Song Wuqiu refined void stage, earth, metal, and fire Yuan Qi, general grade talent. Mo Buffon refined void stage, earth, metal, and fire Yuan Qi, general grade talent. Mo Ting refined void stage, water, earth, and wood Yuan Qi, general grade talent. He San refined void stage, metal, earth, and wood Yuan Qi, general grade talent. Chapter 21. From a Song family and the He family. Only Song Wuqiu and He San could enter the Holy Mountain. On the other hand, the Mo family had Mo Buffon and a young girl around 13 or 14 years old who passed the test. This made the higher-ups of the Mo family beam with joy. Patriarch Mo Lai was all smiles. He San, Song Wuqiu, and Mo Buffon were all pleasantly surprised after the test. They could finally go to the Holy Mountain to see Ruoshi again. Su Yi, you're dead this time. Mo Buffon, He San, and Song Wuqiu immediately stared at Su Yi. After they dealt with Su Yi later, it would be a big gift for Ruoshi. Finally, it was the Su family's turn to be tested. On the balcony, the higher-ups of the Su family and Su Jingting began to feel nervous. Although there were only 7 spots in the Holy Mountain this time, and only 5 people were qualified to enter the Holy Mountain, the remaining 2 spots did not belong to the Su family. Only those with enough talent could enter the Holy Mountain. If not, the spots would be invalid. In addition, If there were more than 7 spots, the Holy Mountain would only select 7 people to enter the Holy Mountain. Suyu Path Integration Stage of the Void Refinement Stage. The 3 attributes of metal, earth, and water are chaotic. Good grade talent, but not enough to enter the Holy Mountain. Some of the Su family's disciples went up for the test. Good grade talent, but not qualified to enter the Holy Mountain. Next, a few more disciples went up, but the results were the same. Under the calm tone of the burly man from the Holy Mountain, they failed the test. On the balcony, Su Jingting, the great elder, and the higher-ups of the Su family became more serious and nervous. Only Su Wei and Su Yi were left. Next, Su Wei. Following the voice of the burly man from the Holy Mountain, Su Wei slowly walked up to the vitality testing stone. His right hand was bandaged, so he could only raise his left hand and place it on the stone. His long and narrow eyes were secretly nervous. After taking a deep breath, his aura shook and vitality gushed out. At this moment, the higher-ups of the Su family were also extremely nervous. Their eyes were fixed on the stone below, and they waited with bated breaths. Boom! Suddenly, a dazzling light shot out from the testing stone. Red, black, and gold lights were dazzling, and their auras shook the surrounding space. When the light came out, the expression of the big man beside the source testing stone changed slightly. He then said, Su Wei, 3rd level of the Essence Soul Realm. Fire, earth, and metal, 3 attributes. Handsome, heavenly talent. Whoosh, so handsome, even better than Lu Yani. Too formidable. This one is a heavenly talent of the handsome grade. His future is limitless, and he is destined to become a powerful individual. Square root starter. When the results of the test were announced, the square was in an uproar. Not bad. This Su Wei and Lu Yani both have 3 elements, but the main element is metal. There are also fire and earth elements, and they can all complement each other. If they can build their foundation on the Saint Mountain, although it will be difficult, it is not impossible for them to reach the king level. Protector Wang Xuanda explained why Su Wei and Lu Yani both had 3 types of Yuan Qi, and their cultivation and age were about the same, but why there was a difference in talent. The 5 elements complement and counter each other. Su Wei's 3 elements complement each other, so his talent was naturally better. It was a pity that Su Wei had already stepped into the Essence Soul Realm. If he could build his foundation on the Saint Mountain, it would be different. With the resources on the Saint Mountain, it was enough to raise Su Wei's talent when he built his foundation. It was not something the Su family's resources could compare to. This also meant that talent did not only represent the cultivation level, but also the foundation. Congratulations to the Su family. Hearing the results of the test, all the major families congratulated the Su family and were secretly envious. In the future, I am afraid I will have to trouble Protector Wang to take care of Su Wei on the Saint Mountain. Su Jingting stood up and bowed to Protector Wang Xuanda. He could not contain the excitement and joy in his heart. Handsome, grade heavenly talent. This was absolutely extraordinary. The Su family's upper echelons, the great elder, and the others were also very happy. Their previous worries and nervousness were swept away. You are welcome. Su Wei's talent is not bad, and his future is limitless. Protector Wang Xuanda smiled slightly and was quite polite to Su Jingting. With Su Wei's handsome grade heavenly talent, and already comparable to the king grade, his future was indeed great. However, at this moment, on the balcony, the young boys and girls still did not care much about this result. They only glanced at Su Wei on the square below. But for the young boys and girls on the square at this moment, this was shocking. Lu Yani was also secretly moved. Next to the Yuan testing stone, Su Wei's pale face revealed a smile. His eyes flashed with light. Handsome grade heavenly talent, destined to be extraordinary. Su Wei bowed to the burly man and retreated. Su Wei stepped down from the Yuan testing stone and swept his gaze around. His gaze swept past the previous haze. Intentionally or unintentionally, his gaze swept past Su Yi, secretly surging with coldness. Yesterday's mistake was only temporary. Handsome grade heavenly talent. After entering the Saint Mountain, he will eventually rise. The one who laughs in the end will be the final winner. The last one, Su. The burly man's voice sounded again. Su-E, that scourge. It is said that Su-E defeated Su-Wei yesterday. I don't know if it is true or not. Impossible. I've heard that Su-E is trash in terms of cultivation. Just now Su-Yi's dog-like appearance has already proven that he is trash. Upon hearing Su-Yi's name, the atmosphere in the hall instantly became very strange. Rustling sounds of discussion could be heard. On the balcony, the upper echelons of the various large families had different expressions. Lu Zhengyuan sat upright, his gaze fixed on the square below. A light flashed in his eyes, disappearing in a flash, unfathomable. At this moment, among the young boys and girls that came from the Saint Mountain, there was a young girl around 16 or 17 years old. Her gaze was somewhat curious as she looked at the square. As the burly man's voice fell, Su-E walked out, directly swaggering towards the Yuan testing stone. He's pretty good looking, but he's a perverted sex fiend. What a pity. Some young girls gazed from afar, some with regret. When Su-E walked forward, not far away, Su-Wei, Mo Buffon, He-san, and Song Wuqiu all stared at Su-Yi's back. Dong dong. Su-E arrived in front of the Yuan testing stone. Under everyone's gaze, he stuck his head out to examine it. He extended his hand and lightly knocked on the Yuan testing stone. With a face full of worry, he asked the burly man next to him, "Will this Yuan testing stone malfunction or something? What if it suddenly crashes?" Hearing Su-Yi's words, the burly man's face could not help but twitch. On the balcony, the upper echelons of the Su family all had ugly expressions on their faces. There were several elders of the Su family. If not for the presence of the experts of the Saint Mountain, they most likely would have wanted to go down and kill this scourge. The testing of the Saint Mountain, this scourge was not proper at all. If he offended the experts of the Saint Mountain, they might as well go back and kill this scourge. Don't worry, the Yuan testing stone is a treasure. There will not be any mistakes. Although the burly man's face was twitching, he still replied to Su-Yi's words. Treasure? Then if I can go up the Saint Mountain, can you give me this Yuan testing stone as a meeting gift or something? Hearing the burly man's words, Su-Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. The burly man stared blankly. This was the first time he encountered such a shameless person. He glanced at Su-Yi and said, "If you have royal talent, or even king talent, although the Yuan testing stone is a treasure, it won't be difficult for you to obtain it. So it's like this. Okay, I'll start the testing." Su-Yi was a bit regretful, but after listening to the burly man's words, it seemed that although the Yuan testing stone was a treasure, it was not at the level of being a precious treasure. Su-Yi took a deep breath after he finished speaking. Chapter 22. Lifting his hand, Su-Yi pressed his right palm against the Yuan testing stone. At the same time, Yuan Qi surged within his body. According to the instructions of the burly man of the sacred mountain, he emptied his body. Yuan Qi flowed through his meridians, gushing out from his palm and entering into the Yuan testing stone. At this moment, the gazes of the entire crowd, including the upper echelons of the various great clans, were all fixed on this scene. In the eyes of Lu Zhengyuan and Su Jingting, at this moment, there was also an undetectable fluctuation. Boom! As Su-Yi's Yuan Qi poured in, the Yuan testing stone instantly erupted with light. At the same time, a powerful aura swept out like a storm. Walala! The aura whistled. Although the dozens of young men and women from the 5 great clans who had already been tested were prepared, this aura was more violent than anyone else's. One figure after another immediately staggered back. Some of the people at the front staggered and fell to the ground with their limbs in the air. Lu Yani was not an exception. Her delicate body staggered backwards, her expression darkening. Yuan Qi rushed out from the soles of her feet, only stabilizing her body after 3 steps. At this moment, the Yuan testing stone erupted with light. Black, green, red, and wind, 4 types of light surged out, dazzling and dazzling. The 4 types of light alternated, all equally dazzling. When the 4 types of light alternated and dazzled, on the balcony, the originally calm gaze of Protector Wang Xuanda also began to ripple. But soon after, his gaze became somewhat regretful. Following the infusion of Yuan Qi, Su Yi instantly felt that within the Yuan testing stone, there was a rich energy fluctuating. This kind of energy surged into his body, as if it was prying into everything within his body. Rumble. At this moment, in Su Yi's mind, the mysterious ball of light seemed to have received some sort of traction and instantly began to move. There was a light that exploded out from Su Yi's mind. A strange energy shot out like lightning, then sealed the energy of the Yuan testing stone within Su Yi's body. At this moment, Su Yi was powerless to stop it. However, he could clearly feel that within the mysterious ball of light in his mind, a strange energy had spread out and directly absorbed the energy from the Yuan testing stone. Or rather, it would be more appropriate to call it devouring. Things didn't stop there. The strange power in the mysterious light went through Su Yi's palm and directly into the Yuan testing stone. Su Yi could clearly feel that a devouring force had formed in his palm. Finally, it was as if he was peeling silk from a cocoon as it absorbed the rich energy from the Yuan testing stone. Boom! On the stone platform, the Yuan testing stone shone brightly, emitting a trembling sound as it shook. The four colors of black, green, red, and white on the vitality testing stone mixed together at this moment. The colorful light enveloped Su Yi. This was an unprecedented turn of events, and the burly man on the holy mountain was flabbergasted. Chilala! Everything did not last for long. In just a few breaths of time, everything calmed down and the light dissipated. However, the Yuan testing stone was no longer sparkling and translucent. It had lost its luster and became an ordinary stone. Crack, crack! A faint cracking sound was heard. Just as the surrounding people had yet to recover from their shock, cracks began to appear on the Yuan testing stone from the inside out. More and more cracks appeared, densely packed like a spiderweb. In the end, the Yuan testing stone quietly collapsed, turning into a pile of powder. What's going on? The surrounding young men and women were the first to be dumbfounded as they looked at each other. The burly man was also dumbfounded. He inspected the Yuan testing stone that had turned into a pile of powder, completely unaware of what had happened. On the balcony, the upper echelons of the 5 great clans, as well as Protector Wang Xuanda and the others, were also dumbfounded at this moment. Swoosh! Subsequently, the burly man raised his hand and uprooted the stone platform from the ground. Yuan Qi formed under his feet and turned into a virtual leopard. It soared into the air and landed directly in front of Protector Wang Xuanda on the balcony. Wang Xuanda stood up, his expression solemn as he carefully inspected the Yuan testing stone that had turned into powder. Several other people from the Sacred Mountain also stepped forward with a puzzled expression and checked together. The people of the Su clan were even more nervous. This happened in front of Su Yi. If anything happened, it would definitely be related to Su Yi. In the field, at this moment, Su Yi was still somewhat unable to recover from his shock. Su Yi did not expect such a change at all. The mysterious ball of light in his mind actually rushed out at this critical moment and turned the Yuan testing stone into powder. Su Yi recalled that there seemed to be a strange force rushing out from the mysterious ball of light and directly absorbing the energy in the Yuan testing stone. Then, the Yuan testing stone became like that. What the hell did this scourge do? Even the Yuan testing stone was destroyed. Many of the surrounding young men and women slightly recovered from their shock at this time. One by one, they stared at Su Yi. This guy was really a scourge. He even destroyed the Yuan testing stone. On the balcony, after a round of inspection, Protector Wang Xuanda shook his head at the people around him. Then he looked down at Su Yi. Wang Xuanda's eyes moved slightly. Without any movement, his figure directly appeared in midair and landed in front of Su Yi. "You are Su Yi?" Wang Xuanda looked at Su Yi and carefully sized him up. It was as if he wanted to see through Su Yi. "That's right." Su Yi nodded. Under the invisible aura, Protector Wang Xuanda seemed to be much stronger than the burly man. "What did you do just now?" Why did the Yuan testing stone shatter? Wang Xuanda looked at Su Yi and asked. His eyes were somewhat sharp. First take care, carrot. I didn't do anything. Su Yi had an innocent look on his face. Naturally, he wouldn't mention the matter of the mysterious ball of light in his mind. The more he tried to push the blame away, the better. He shrugged helplessly and said, I already said, what if the primordial testing stone malfunctioned and crashed? Isn't this a problem? How could Wang Xuanda believe that the Yuan testing stone had malfunctioned? All the Yuan testing stones on the Saint Mountain had been refined by experts. Although it was theoretically possible for them to malfunction, but such a thing had never happened before. Swoosh, swoosh. On the balcony, two more figures descended. It was Lu Zongyuan and Su Jingting. Su Yi, did you do anything just now? In front of Protector Wang of the Saint Mountain. Don't be so presumptuous. Su Jingting looked at Su Yi and asked. His eyes were also somewhat sharp. Uncle, I really didn't do anything. I also don't know why this happened. There must be a malfunction in the Yuan testing stone. Su Yi said to Su Jingting. No matter what, the mysterious ball of light in his mind must not be exposed. Protector Wang, although Su Yi is mischievous, he would absolutely not dare to do anything to the Yuan testing stone. Protector Wang, please examine it carefully. Su Jingting glanced at Su Yi, then clasped his hands and bowed to Protector Wang Xuanda. Protector Wang Xuanda waved his hand slightly, indicating that Su Jingting need not say anything more. Chapter 23. Do you have anything on you? Carefully sizing up Su Yi, Protector Wang Xuanda secretly raised his eyebrows and asked, No, I don't have anything on me. Su Yi patted his body. He did not have anything on him. This matter is somewhat special. After I return to the Saint Mountain, I will naturally investigate. Although Wang Xuanda suspected that this young man had some sort of treasure on him that caused the Yuan testing stone to fail and shatter. But Wang Xuanda's thoughts changed. How could the young master of a small family in such a remote little city have such a level of treasure? Most likely, the entire family might not even have a space bag. Protector, then what is the result of my examination? Can I enter the Saint Mountain? Su Yi asked. Following Su Yi's question, the gazes of Su Jingting, Lu Zongyuan, and the surrounding young men and women all fell on Wang Xuanda, waiting for his reply. It's a pity, it's really a pity. Gazing at Su Yi, Wang Xuanda sighed. From the Yuan testing stone, you have wind attribute Yuan Qi. It's extremely rare. Wind attribute, special attribute. Hearing this, Su Jingting, Lu Zongyuan, and the others' expressions changed. Apart from the 5 attributes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, there were 2 publicly recognized special attributes. One was the lightning attribute, the other was the wind attribute. It was rumored that martial artists with these 2 special attributes would be extremely powerful. But the appearance of these special attributes was also extremely rare. Although you have wind attribute Yuan Qi, but at the same time you also have earth, water, and fire attributes. These 4 attributes are not only chaotic, there is no primary or secondary attribute. Of the 3 attributes of earth, water, and fire, there are 2 that counter each other. Protector Wang Xuanda gazed at Su Yi, somewhat regretful. With your age, although you have already reached the soul essence stage, even in the Saint Mountain, it is still rare. It's a pity that the attributes of your Yuan Qi are chaotic and counter each other. In the future, your path of cultivation will not have much development. Hearing this, Su Jingting and the upper echelons of the Su family all felt somewhat regretful. The higher the expectations, the greater the disappointment. Lu Zongyuan's eyes moved, a trace of disappointment appearing in his eyes. Trash will always be trash. Not far away, Su Wei's gaze was originally somewhat nervous. When he heard Wang Xuanda's words, a cold smile immediately appeared in his eyes. Yesterday's defeat was nothing. His handsome gray talent was destined to be extraordinary. How could that trash compare to him? He's really at the soul essence realm. However, there were many people present who were shocked. Su Yi had actually reached the soul essence realm. This was especially true for He San, Emo Buffon, and Song Wuchio. Their hearts were secretly stirred. They never thought that the scourge would actually be at the soul essence realm. Just tell me, can I enter the sacred mountain or not? At this moment, Su Yi's heart sank. Was his talent so unbearable? In any case, he had already stepped into the essence soul realm. He felt that the origin supreme technique should not be like this. With your talent, you won't be able to enter the sacred mountain. If you really want to enter the sacred mountain, the most you can do is be a servant. Protector Wang Chuanda said. Such talent did not have much of a future. Even if he entered the sacred mountain, he was destined to barely be a handyman. I thought would be unexpected. Turns out it's just a handyman. In the Su family, only Su Wei is powerful. In the end, Su Yi is just a playboy. All around the square, there were discussions. Some were mocking, some were sneering. Protector, there's a problem with the Yuan testing stone. Can it be retested? Su Yi took a deep breath and asked Protector Wang. There was indeed an abnormality with the Yuan testing stone. Perhaps the mysterious ball of light had affected the test results. The sacred mountain was the holy land of cultivators. Su Yi really wanted to go. He did not want to lose this opportunity. Although there's a problem with the Yuan testing stone, the test results are in front of you. There won't be a mistake. Your talent is indeed not enough to enter the sacred mountain. Protector Wang Chuanda was a little surprised. This was the first time he had met someone who wanted to retest. One must know that the youth who had been tested in front of the sacred mountain was trembling with fear. It was not like this. Moreover, although the Yuan testing stone was not a treasure, it was not something that could be casually obtained. This time, Wang Chuanda had only brought one with him to Barbarian City. Even if he wanted to retest it, it was impossible. No, that's not fair. There's clearly a problem with the Yuan testing stone. Why do you say my talent is not enough? He shook his head and looked at Wang Chuanda. I said there won't be a problem with the test results. There's absolutely no problem. You only have the qualifications to be a servant. You're doomed to have no future. Wang Chuanda looked at Su Yi with displeasure. As a dignified Sacred Mountains protector, how could he allow a youth to pester him endlessly and doubt his words? Su Yi, step back. Don't make trouble. Seeing Wang Chuanda's displeasure, Su Yi immediately reprimanded him. In front of a Sacred Mountain expert, there was no room to talk back. Huff! Su Yi adjusted himself and took a deep breath. Since the Sacred Mountains protector had said so, there was no need to force it. Although Su Yi did not want to miss out on going to the Sacred Mountain to train, but something like falling in love was definitely not Su Yi's character. If I can't go to the Sacred Mountain, then I won't go. There are many places in this world that I can go to, not just the Sacred Mountain. Su Yi looked at Wang Chuanda. His seemingly thin body was now as straight as a javelin. There was a tenacity in his eyes. But Protector Wang, words cannot be said. Everything in this world is possible. What is the qualifications to be a servant? Perhaps one day, I will make Protector Wang see me in a different light. On the balcony, there was a smiling girl around 16 or 17 years old. Her lips were like cherry blossoms, and her eyebrows were like ink paintings. She could not help but look at Su Yi a few more times, as if there was a kind of curiosity in her eyes. As Su Yi's voice faded, Su Jingting, Lu Zongyuan, and the others' faces changed. This was a provocation to Protector Wang. Ha! Hearing Su Yi's words, Protector Wang Chuanda was taken aback for a moment, his face darkening a little. He smiled faintly, looking straight at Su Yi. Your talent is ordinary, but you are so arrogant. Wang Chuanda, will really say it today. With your qualifications to be a servant, if one day you can step into the origin spirit stage, then Wang Chuanda, will take back my words in front of everyone. Su Yi, you are too impudent. This time when we return, you will be heavily punished. Quickly kowtow and apologize to Protector Wang. Su Jingting glared angrily at Su Yi, his expression changing. The protector of the Sacred Mountain was clearly enraged. Protector Wang, this little brat doesn't know any better. Don't lower yourself to his level. Lu Zongyuan's expression changed, immediately apologizing to Wang Chuanda. Protector Wang, This little bastard has lacked discipline since he was young. When we return, I will definitely heavily punish him." Su Jingting apologized, cold sweat beading on his forehead. It's fine, it's fine." Wang Chuanda forcefully suppressed his anger. To be so serious with a youngster, this would damage his bearing and image. Su Yi secretly smiled. From Wang Chuanda's point of view, perhaps the sacred mountain was not what he had imagined. Son-in-law greets father-in-law. Chapter 24. Father-in-law. Everyone was stunned. Not to mention Wang Chuanda, even the upper echelons of the family on the balcony. Lu Zongyuan himself was also stunned. "Su Yi, what nonsense are you shouting? You're too shameless, Su Yi. Su Yi, you bastard, shameless. You don't know what shame is." After being stunned for a short while, He-san, Song Wuqiu, and Mo Bufan were the first to curse. If not for the presence of the experts of the Sacred Mountain, He-san and the others would most likely have directly charged forward. The city lord Lu Zongyuan only had one daughter. Su Yi calling him father-in-law undoubtedly represented that Su Yi still had designs on Lu Ruashi. This was something they absolutely could not allow. Su Jingting's gaze was also somewhat stunned. Then his eyes moved, but he did not say anything. The gazes of the spectators all around the city also suddenly fell on the city lord Lu Zongyuan. The agreement between the old man of the Su family and the Lu family 3 years ago was something everyone in the city knew about. But no one would have thought that Su Yi would bring it up in front of everyone at this time. "Nephew, you must have called me wrongly. You should quickly return. Although you cannot go to the Sacred Mountain, but perhaps in the future you will still have the hope of becoming an expert." Lu Zongyan looked at Su Yi, his face squeezing out a smile. He absolutely did not think that this little brat would bring up this matter at this time. 3 years ago, my grandfather and the Lu family had an agreement. 3 years later, if I came back alive and successfully entered the foundation establishment stage, then Lu Ruashi and I would be engaged. Now that I have already stepped into the soul essence stage, this agreement is of course valid. Therefore, I should call you father-in-law. So he looked at Lu Zongyan, his voice very loud, spreading far and wide. If he could not go to the Sacred Mountain, then he would think of another way. But because of that little girl Lu Ruashi, he had experienced 3 years of inhuman life and had escaped death several times. Naturally, he would not let that little girl have an easy time. In addition, the Sacred Mountain did not want him. According to Fatty Wong, Lu Ruashi's position in the Sacred Mountain was not ordinary. Then this marriage would at least make the Sacred Mountain uncomfortable. This could also be considered as revenge. Su Yi had always been a vengeful person. Listening to Su Yi's words, the upper echelons of the various families looked at each other, speechless. Everyone clearly knew what had happened 3 years ago. At that time, no one would have thought that Su Yi would not only be able to come back alive from the barbaric demon forest, but that trash, who was unable to store any yuan qi, would actually miraculously reach the soul essence realm. The upper echelons of the various large families all stared at Lu Zongyuan. Everyone understood that the agreement from 3 years ago was only because old man Su Yun Tian had stepped forward to make the face of the Lu and Su family look better. Why, but who would have thought that everything would turn out like this? If they had known that Su Yi would be able to step into the soul essence realm in 3 years, the Lu clan would not have agreed to the original agreement. Moreover, Lu Ruashi's status in the Holy Mountain was extremely high, and Su Yi had just been found to be a servant. No matter how one looked at it, the Lu family probably didn't want to agree to the marriage even more. Lu Zongyuan was somewhat embarrassed. The agreement between him and old man Su Yun Tian was known by the entire city, and there was nothing he could say. If Su Yi's talent had been found to be not bad today, and he agreed to the marriage, then it would not be a big deal. But even though Su Yi had stepped into the soul essence realm, his talent was ordinary. He was not a person of power, but there were many things that he could not do anything about. Even for Ruashi, that was already impossible. City Lord Lu, just what is going on? Is it related to Ruashi? Guardian Wang Chuanda finally could not bear it any longer. If it was related to Lu Ruashi, then he had no choice but to understand. This Lu Zhen gave an awkward smile, saying to guardian Wang Chuanda, 3 years ago, I made an agreement with the Su family's old master. If Su Yi can successfully reach foundation establishment in 3 years, then he will be engaged to my daughter Ruoshi. No. Before Lu Zhengyan's words had even landed, Wang Chuanda had already decisively said, this engagement cannot be counted. Su Yi looked at Wang Chuanda, saying, the marriage between the Su family and the Lu family was originally an agreement between the Su family and the Lu family. Isn't the sacred mountain a bit too broad? Ruoshi is a disciple of the sacred mountain, so the sacred mountain can naturally control this marriage. With your talent as a servant, you are delusional to think that you are worthy of a disciple of the sacred mountain, a toad wanting to eat swan meat. Wang Chuanda looked at Su Yi, an invisible aura emanating from him. There was a flash of light in his eyes, and there was a sneer and ridicule in his eyes. How could this odd-job talent be worthy of a disciple of the sacred mountain? Moreover, Lu Ruoshi's position and future in the sacred mountain, if she had any relationship with this little brat, and this spread out, then the sacred mountain's face would be lost. Wang Chuanda was very clear that no matter what, this matter had to be resolved clearly. On the balcony, the several young men and women of the sacred mountain also understood, and their eyes were secretly filled with disdain and ridicule. A toad wanting to eat swan meat, overestimating his own capabilities. A 15 or 16-year-old white-clothed youth said coldly, the corners of his mouth curling up in a sneer. At this moment, the upper echelons of the various great families on the balcony also became nervous. The Su family's great elder and the others had an extremely grave expression. Su Yi, stop messing around, back off. Feeling the aura fluctuating from Wang Chuanda's body, Su Jingting once again berated Su Yi. This little brat had already caused enough trouble today, repeatedly contradicting the experts of the sacred mountain. Once the experts of the sacred mountain were angered, the consequences would be unimaginable. Uncle, I am not messing around, Su Yi said to Su Jingting, his eyes fixed on Wang Chuanda. Under the pressure of that invisible aura, it was as if his surroundings were bound, as if there was 1,000 Jin of pressure on his body, faintly making it difficult to breathe. But at this moment, Su Yi also became stubborn. Looking at Wang Chuanda, he said, my talent is only what you say. I myself believe that my talent is outstanding and will not be below anyone of the sacred mountain. As for a toad wanting to eat swan meat, that is still better than a frog. At least the toad has dreams, while the frog only knows how to look at the sky from the bottom of a well. As his voice faded, Su Yi's gaze turned, looking at Lu Zhongyuan. Father-in-law, I have already reached the essence soul stage. This is the agreement from back then. No matter if you admit it or not, the marriage agreement is already valid. Hearing this, Lu Zhongyuan's gaze fixed on Su Yi, secretly fluctuating a little. Ha ha! Wang Chuanda laughed, roaring with laughter. But anyone could hear that within this laughter, there was already anger mixed within, and it was no longer just displeasure. What a good toad with dreams. A little servant dares to speak such arrogant words, not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. As his laughter faded, Wang Chuanda's gaze was fixed on Su Yi's body. The invisible aura around him became even more vigorous and fierce. Under the terrifying aura, Su Yi's footsteps staggered. It was as if his body was being crushed by a 10,000 Jin boulder. Even his Xian Qi was freezing and stagnating. His body went limp, unable to control himself, as if he was about to collapse. Dang! At this moment, Su Yi clenched his teeth, taking a step back. Taking a step back, he stamped his foot on the ground. Clenching his teeth, he steadied his body, his complexion turning pale in an instant. Chapter 25. XSF hair. As Su Jingting's figure blocked the attack, Su Yi immediately felt the invisible suppression around his body lighten. His eyes moved slightly, knowing that eldest uncle Su Jingting had secretly blocked a lot of the attack for him. Protector Wang, Su Yi is still young and lacks discipline. Please calm your anger. Lu Zongyuan also opened his mouth to plead for leniency. "Umph." Wang Chuanda snorted coldly. His eyes were cold as they fell on Su Yi. He said to Su Jingting, "Discipline her well in the future. The so-called marriage contract doesn't count. Ruashi is now a disciple of Sacred Mountain. Her marriage naturally requires the approval of Sacred Mountain. Don't mention this again in the future. Otherwise, of course. Su Jingting nodded hurriedly. Ah, Sui laughed. His laughter was somewhat hoarse and angry. He walked in front of Su Jingting and stared at Wang Chuanda. Why? Because the Sacred Mountain is powerful? I refuse to accept this. Brat, do you want to die? Wang Chuanda was truly enraged. He glared at Su Yi, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Sui, Su Jingting angrily rebuked. This brat was actually so mischievous, taking advantage of your position to bully others. The marriage between the Su and Lu clan has nothing to do with the Holy Mountain. Today, I'll take it seriously. Who can do anything to me? Su Yi looked at Wang Chuanda. His seemingly skinny body was like a sharp sword that had been stretched taut by a tremendous force and was tenaciously bouncing back. His eyes were also rippling with light. Good. Wang Chuanda said good 3 times in a row, and his eyes became gloomy. When the last word fell, his eyes became cold, and he said, "Arrogant, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Today I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your Su clan elders." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Chuanda's aura fluctuated. He raised his hand and slapped towards Su Yi. "Protector Wang, please calm down." Su Jingting's eyes shone with a brilliant light as he waved his arms. Yuan Qi surged from his body, bringing with it a blazing hot aura. This was fire attributed Yuan Qi, directly blocking the attack. Bang! A low muffled sound was immediately heard when the 2 palms collided, and the surrounding air waves fluctuated. Pooh! There was no turning back. Su Jingting's body staggered backward, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale in an instant. "Father, Patriarch!" Su Wei, who was not far away, glared at Su Yi and immediately ran to Su Jingting's side. On the balcony, the Su family's great elder's face also changed greatly, and he immediately jumped down. The faces of the upper echelons of the major clans were also tense. "Uncle!" Su Yi's expression changed greatly. Seeing that Su Wei and the elders of the Su family had already stepped forward, he did not step forward. Instead, he turned around and looked at Wang Chuanda. His eyes were filled with coldness as he clenched his fists tightly. Protector Wang Chuanda didn't care about injuring Su Yi at all. He didn't even look at him. He raised his hand and slapped at Su Yi again. Boom! Such a slap was accompanied by a strong wind. Under the invisible aura, Su Yi's body seemed to be completely sealed and solidified. The profound qi in his body was also suppressed to the point of solidification. Too powerful. At this moment, Su Yi truly realized how strong Wang Chuanda was. If it wasn't for his uncle Su Jingting blocking the attack, he would have died long ago. Even with his uncle's strength, he was still injured after blocking the attack. It was enough to show that Wang Chuanda simply wanted to take his life. With your status and cultivation level, to be so ruthless to a junior, is the Sacred Mountain going to bully others like this? Suddenly, at this moment, an old voice was heard. At the same time, a figure strangely appeared in front of Su Yi, accompanied by a blazing aura that swept out. At this moment, feeling this blazing aura, Wang Chuanda's eyes darkened. He looked up and saw that an old figure had already appeared in front of Su Yi. A fist wrapped in burning flames immediately collided. Boom! Everything happened as fast as lightning in an instant. A muffled explosion sounded, and a strong wind swept out and shook the entire square. The youths present were continuously pushed back by the surrounding strong winds. Some of them even fell to the ground with their limbs facing the sky. Ding, ding. At the same time, the old figure that had just appeared staggered back 3 steps before stabilizing his body. Protector Wang Chuanda also took a step back, but he immediately stabilized his body. This sudden turn of events caused everyone to be shocked. Numerous gazes immediately turned to look at the old figure that had suddenly appeared. The old figure's white hair fluttered in the wind. On his wrinkled face, the clear outline of his youth could be seen. His figure was tall and straight, and his cloud robe was slightly lifted. In his eyes, there was a surge of light, and for some reason, he gave people a kind of majesty. "Greetings, old Master Su." When such an old man appeared, the whole square suddenly changed color. Everyone's eyes were suddenly filled with awe. This was Su Yuntian. Back then, from Man City, he killed in all directions and beheaded the enemy. That scene was still vivid in everyone's minds. The younger people of Man City had also heard of such deeds since they were little. Old Master Su, Lu Zongyuan also clasped his hands in greeting. On the balcony, the upper echelons of the various large families also jumped down. Such an old man was respected by the entire Man City. After Wang Qiuanda took a step back, his gaze fell on Old Master Su Yuntian's body. His expression changed slightly. Protector Wang. At the same time, the youths and the large men on the balcony could not stand still. They jumped down the balcony and went to Wang Qiuanda's side. "Old Master, Father." The elder of the Su family, Su Jingting, also went to Su Yuntian's side. "Hello, everyone." Old Master Su Yuntian looked all around, nodding his head in greeting to the people of the various large families. "Grandfather." Su Yi went forward, looking at the grandfather who had loved him the most since he was little. At this moment, there was no joy, but rather a serious expression. From what had just happened, it seemed that his grandfather was at a disadvantage, or at least had suffered a loss. Good, good, good." Old Master Su Yuntian turned his head, looking at Su Yi. His large palm patted Su Yi's shoulder, his long white hair fluttering, his eyes smiling. After saying the word good 3 times, he said, "You are indeed worthy of being my grandson. You have the same arrogance as your father. You are the blood of the Su family, the seed of the Su family." "Grandfather, you don't need to say anything." Su Yi seemed to want to say something, but Old Master Su Yuntian interrupted him. Looking at Su Yi, he said with a smile, "That little girl Ruashi, I have watched her grow up. I also like her very much. You two are childhood sweethearts, innocent and innocent." The Su and Lu families also have an agreement. Since you have already reached the foundation establishment stage, then this agreement naturally has to be kept. In the future, when you marry that little girl Ruashi and give birth to a few great-grandchildren for me, I will definitely be very happy. When Old Master Su Yuntian's words fell, the entire crowd suddenly became a little strange. Where did these childhood sweethearts come from? If it wasn't for Su Yi's shameless and perverted drug, how could there be such an agreement? Old Master is too shameless. What does this have to do with childhood sweethearts? It is clearly Su Yi who is perverted and perverted. How can it be that they're childhood sweethearts? This is confusing the public. Immediately, He-san, Mo Buffon, and Song Wuchio were indignant. But in front of Old Master Su Yuntian, they didn't dare to say it out loud. Like grandson, like father, so Su Yi's behavior is hereditary. Hearing Old Master Su Yuntian's words, the gazes of the various great families and all around the square were secretly helpless. It was clearly Su Yi who was perverted. But in Old Master Su Yuntian's words, they became childhood sweethearts. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Su Yi's behavior was hereditary. The people of the Su family were all somewhat taken aback. Old Master Su Yuntian was indeed Old Master Su Yuntian. The moment he opened his mouth, it was different. Lu Zongyuan's face was filled with a bitter smile and grievance. He knew that this old master was not easy to deal with. He had already experienced it 3 years ago. The people of Barbarian City all said that Lu Zongyuan was not easy to deal with. But Lu Zongyuan himself was the clearest. Compared to the old master of the Su family, he was only a primary school student. Chapter 26. City Lord. The agreement between the Su and Lu family can be witnessed by the entire Barbarian City. Su Yi has survived 3 years in the Barbarian Demon Forest. This also proves that there is fate between him and Ruashi. Let's settle this matter according to the original agreement. Su Yuntian looked at Lu Zongyuan. The wrinkles on his face were like the merciless carvings of time, but his eyes were deep and dignified. Lu Zongyuan understood that the old man was hinting that Su Yi had stayed in the barbarian demon forest for 3 years, and the Su family did not interfere. But now that Su Yi had returned alive, it naturally could not be easily counted. Old man, Lu Zongyuan opened his mouth, but Wang Chuanda interrupted him. His expression darkened as he looked at Su Yuntian and said, Ruashi's marriage is not counted. What a good holy mountain. This matter has already been decided. If the holy mountain continues to use their power to oppress others, then I'm afraid it won't be too good if word gets out. Su Yuntian looked directly at Wang Chuanda. Wang Chuanda's expression changed. From the expressions of the surrounding people, Su Yuntian's position in Barbarian City was extremely high. Wang Chuanda was not afraid of Su Yuntian, but if he forcefully interfered today, it would not be good for the Sacred Mountain. Although Barbarian City was only a small place, but because of Lu Ruashi's position in the Sacred Mountain, this matter was extremely important. If he could not handle it well today, or cause some trouble in Barbarian City, he would not be able to report back. A toad wants to eat swan meat. Junior sister Ruashi is not someone that a servant like you can dream of. At this time, behind Wang Chuanda, a 15 or 16-year-old white-clothed youth walked out. His white clothes fluttered in the wind, and he was quite handsome. Under his long eyebrows, a pair of eyes looked straight at Su Yi. The disdain and ridicule in his eyes were not concealed. Didn't you want to be tested again? I'll give you a chance. As long as you can receive 3 of my moves, no, 2 of my moves is enough. As long as you can receive 2 of my moves, it will prove that you have the qualifications to enter the Sacred Mountain. When such a youth walked out, the surrounding gazes were all focused on him. On Wang Chuanda's secretly gloomy face, a trace of emotion passed through his eyes. He did not say anything, silently agreeing with the white-clothed youth's words. The 15 or 16-year-old girl had also arrived at the square. Her bright eyes moved slightly as she continued to size up Su Yi. Very well, Ji Chao's age is similar to yours. If you can take 2 moves from Ji Chao, it means that you have the qualifications to go to the Sacred Mountain. But if you can't even take 2 moves, then this engagement will be considered valid. After some thought, Wang Chuanda looked at Su Yi and smiled coldly. Perhaps this matter should be handled by someone of the younger generation. Wang Chuanda was very clear about Ji Chao's strength. Such an errand boy, let alone 2 moves, would definitely not be able to take 1 move from Ji Chao. If this matter could be resolved like this, then it would be perfect. The whole place was silent. At this moment, all eyes fell on Su Yi, wondering if Su Yi would choose to fight the disciple from the Sacred Mountain. Old Master Su Yuntian didn't say anything. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well. Be New DX Chapter 3 equals Section 1%. Boy, you don't dare. You don't even have the guts, yet you still want to eat swan meat. How about I let you take 1 move, just 1 move? Ji Chao sneered and pointed his finger at Su Yi. He had come out for training this time only as a formality, but he didn't expect to encounter such a situation. A person with the potential to be a servant actually wanted to lay his hands on junior sister Lu Ruashi. If this was on the Sacred Mountain, he would probably be laughed at. Su Yi raised his eyes slightly. Under the gazes of everyone present, this battle was inevitable. So what if he's from the Sacred Mountain? 1 move? You think too highly of yourself. With a faint smile, Su Yi stepped forward with a smile on his face. Since it was inevitable, then he would bravely move forward. It wasn't as if he hadn't fought with experts in the past 3 years. When Su Yi stepped forward, Old Master Su Yuntian's calm eyes finally showed some fluctuation, but it didn't leave any trace and was quickly restrained. I knew it. How could Su Yi not dare to provoke the Barbarian City? Let's kill him. In the audience seats, Fatty Wong was squeezed in the middle of the crowd. On his chubby face, his eyes narrowed into a thin line. When he saw Su Yi accept the challenge, he immediately jumped up in excitement. That youth in white was too arrogant, and he couldn't stand it. But then, a middle-aged man sitting next to Fatty Wong turned around and glared at him. Fatty Wong immediately lowered his head, not daring to speak. As Su Yi accepted the challenge, the upper echelons of the major families were also secretly moved. Although Su Yi had already stepped into the soul essence realm, Ji Chao was a disciple of the sacred mountain. At a glance, it was obvious that he was much stronger than Su Yi. What's more, everyone could see that although Wang Chuanda said that Ji Chao and Su Yi were about the same age, it was obvious that Ji Chao was older. Coupled with the sacred mountain's nurturing, the difference between Su Yi and Ji Chao was like heaven and earth. Blood dripped from a corner of Su Jingting's mouth. When he saw Su Yi walk out, he seemed to want to say something, but seeing that old master Su Yun Tian didn't speak, he hesitated. Su Wei stood next to Su Jingting, watching everything with a cold gaze. When he saw Su Yi walk out, a sneer appeared on Ji Chao's face. He didn't expect this kid to have some guts. He really dared to accept the challenge, or maybe he was just being reckless. Then, Ji Chao's face became gloomy. This kid didn't seem to care about him. I originally thought that in the entire barbarian city, except for junior sister Lu Ruoshi, everyone was trash. But you actually have some guts. This is quite surprising. Make your move, or else you won't even have the chance to fight. Ji Chao sneered at Su Yi. His ridicule couldn't be expressed in words. How could he put a kid from a small barbarian city in his eyes? That's too much. Are you saying that we're all trash? Ji Chao's words immediately made the young people present unhappy. He was scolding everyone. I wonder what your talent was back then. Su Yi looked at Ji Chao and asked indifferently. He king grade. Ji Chao replied with a proud look in his eyes. King tier talent was rare, even in the sacred mountain. King grade. Hearing this, the young people around were shocked. Although they were unhappy with Ji Chao, their eyes were secretly filled with yearning and envy. A king grade talent was destined to become a powerhouse. King grade talent. So, in the eyes of an emperor grade talent, you're just a piece of trash. Su Yi looked at Ji Chao and said indifferently with a smile. Ha! Su Yi, good job. When Su Yi's words spread, the people around suddenly laughed, as if they had breathed a sigh of relief. From this moment on, many people's feelings towards Su Yi immediately improved. The experts and higher-ups of the various large families were secretly moved at this moment. Ji Chao had scolded the entire barbarian city, but because of the sacred mountain, they couldn't say anything. Chapter 27. Everyone knew of Su Yi's character. He had never suffered a loss since he was young. Even He San, Song Wuqiu, and the rest of his generation had all been bullied by Su Yi since they were young. Although Ji Chao came from the sacred mountain and was perhaps much stronger, everyone in Barbarian City knew that Su Yi had never suffered a loss. After hearing Su Yi's words, Ji Chao's originally mocking face instantly turned ugly. A sinister look emerged as he stared unwaveringly at Su Yi. Su Yi's eyes remained calm as he stared back at Ji Chao. However, his body became a little straighter. A chilling aura spread out from Ji Chao's body. An aura slowly gushed out from his body. His white robes fluttered slightly as a sinister voice sounded out. Brat, I have to say, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. However, I will tell you soon. Such a sinister voice slowly spread out from the plaza, causing the surrounding atmosphere to instantly become somewhat cold. As his voice faded, Yuan power swept out from Ji Chao's feet. His foot stomped on the ground as his figure directly rushed towards Su Yi. Faint black Yuan power gushed out from his palm. G update BR max /J quick /VO in an instant. Ji Chao lifted his hand and waved it. His right hand slightly bent as black Yuan power gushed out from his fingertips and gathered at his fingertips. Accompanied by the sound of wind tearing through the air, he directly grabbed at Su Yi's throat with incomparable ferocity. As he felt the sound of wind tearing through the air, Su Yi's eyes slightly narrowed. At the same time, a ray of light gushed out from the soles of his feet. With a slight step forward, The yuan power under his feet formed a repulsive force, causing his body to immediately explosively retreat. Looking at Su Yi's actions, although it was only a dodge, there were many people with sharp eyes who could see that Su Yi's seemingly simple retreating action was, in fact, incomparably agile and swift. This kind of reaction speed was definitely not ordinary. As if he did not expect Su Yi's actions to be so fast, Ji Chao's eyes darkened. Just as his leaping figure landed on the ground, his claw opened into a palm. Black Earth attribute yuan power gushed out even more ferociously. A cold light gushed out from his eyes as yuan power condensed in his palm, covering it with a layer of black light. Great Earth Palm. Several youths from the sacred mountain were astonished. Ji Chao had actually rushed towards the Great Earth Palm. Watching everything with cold eyes, Wang Chuanda sneered. Looks like the result was already decided. Under the Great Earth Palm, Su Yi would be crippled even if he didn't die. The palm print followed closely behind, bringing with it a roaring sound in the air. A huge gust of wind directly swept up the gravel and dust in the surrounding square. At this moment, Su Yi had also lost the ability to retaliate. His body stopped moving, and when he felt the strong wind, his face gradually became still. Everything happened as fast as lightning. There was no time to hesitate. The palm print was already in front of him. Su Yi raised his eyes and raised his arm. Vital energy surged out from his palm. Is he going to meet force with force? Seeing Su Yi's posture, the upper echelons of the various large families and the onlookers were in an uproar. No matter how they looked at it, it seemed that Su Yi would suffer a great loss if he met force with force. This was definitely not a wise choice. Ji Chao sneered. That kid is courting death if he wants to meet force with force. Just as everyone held their breaths and waited, the palm was about to reach Su Yi's chest. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. In a flash, his foot suddenly stepped to the side, and his figure slanted to dodge. Kid, you're too slow. You can't dodge at all. Ji Chao sneered. How could this kid dodge? His palm shook and directly collided with Su Yi's chest. Su Yi avoided his chest, but Ji Chao's palm fiercely landed on his left shoulder. Bang! A low muffled sound immediately rang out. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. Their hearts were in their throats. Su Yi was ultimately not Ji Chao's opponent, but at this moment, Su Yi's lips curled into a sneer. With a hint of cruelty, his body leaned to the right with the help of his left shoulder. At the same time, a cold light gushed out from Su Yi's long sleeves. His right arm swept out, and with lightning speed, it directly slashed across Ji Chao's face. PFFF, when the palm landed on his shoulder, Su Yi spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was directly knocked back. After staggering 7 or 8 steps, he finally stabilized his body. Slash! At the same time, a finger-long wound on the left side of Ji Chao's face fell from the corner of his eye. Blood slowly flowed out and covered his face. The intense pain caused Ji Chao to involuntarily hold his face and scream. This scene caused everyone to be stunned. Originally, everyone had thought that Su Yi was bound to lose. Who would have thought that the final result would be like this? At this moment, everyone understood that Su Yi did not want to take the attack head-on. Instead, he deliberately drew Ji Chao's attention, and in the end, used a sneak attack. Looking at Ji Chao's bloody face, everyone looked at Su Yi. In his right hand, a dagger glittered with cold light and was stained with blood. It was obvious that Su Yi had suddenly used the ice blade. It was also a sudden attack that injured Ji Chao in a mutually destructive manner. At this moment, the expressions of the young boys and girls from the sacred mountain changed greatly. They had never thought that this would be the result. Su Yi stabilized his body and slightly raised his eyes to look at the screaming Ji Chao. The dagger in his hand quietly disappeared. Using his long sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, he said, "You've lost. If I hadn't held back, this blade would have fallen on your neck, and you would already be a dead man." Su Yi's words clearly spread in the silent square. Everyone's eyes were immediately filled with shock as they looked at the young boy who was still bleeding from the corner of his mouth. He can still stand up after taking a blow from Ji Chao. Seems a bit special. The 15 or 16-year-old girl from the Sacred Mountain did not seem to care much about Ji Chao's injury. Instead, she seemed to be more and more interested in Sui. Bastard, you actually used a weapon. Wang Xuanda also came back to his senses. His expression suddenly changed. He had never thought that Sui would be so insidious. There's no rule against using a weapon. Could it be that the Sacred Mountain can't afford to lose? Old man Su Yuntian opened his mouth. Finally, there was a fluctuation in his eyes as he looked at Sui, who was forced to retreat. His eyes were filled with shock and joy. No, I haven't lost. I haven't lost. Boy, I will never let you go. A venomous voice rang out from Ji Chao's mouth. His bloodied face looked hideous as he stared at Sui with an extremely sinister gaze. When his voice faded, black yuan qi surged out from Ji Chao's body like mist. The aura on his body also swept out without reservation. Chapter 28. At this moment, the upper echelons and experts of the various large families were all dumbfounded. Although they could sense that Ji Chao was at the end of the soul essence realm, they did not expect that Ji Chao had already reached the pinnacle of the soul essence realm. Most likely, he was about to reach the profound origin realm. A 15-year-old profound origin realm expert. To the upper echelons and experts of the various large families present, this was too frightening. His future was limitless. At this moment, when Ji Chao's aura gushed out, a strange feeling immediately enveloped Suyi's body. For no reason, Suyi's hair stood on end. He could clearly feel that he had been locked onto by Ji Chao. At this moment, a strange aura quietly spread out from Suyi's body. As if it was being suppressed by the enormous power coming from Ji Chao's body, a strange aura seemed to be awakening within Suyi's body. At the same time, a scarlet color quietly spread out from his eyes, covering his pupils. This is not fair. Sui has already won. At this moment, when he felt the aura from Ji Chao's body, Su Yuntian's expression darkened. From the first layer to the 9th layer of the soul essence realm, every layer was a step. Suyi's aura had just stepped into the soul essence realm, while Ji Chao was about to reach the profound origin realm. With a difference of 9 layers, it would be difficult for anyone to cross such a huge gap. Naturally, Su Yuntian was worried about Sui. How can this prove that Sui has won? Strictly speaking, Suyi's injuries are more serious. Not to mention that we agreed on 2 moves. Just now it was only 1 move. Using underhanded tricks, did he really think that he could win? It's just a crooked path. Protector Wang Xuanda sneered. Ji Chao still had the strength to fight. Earlier, Sui had only taken advantage of Ji Chao, causing Ji Chao to suffer a great loss due to his carelessness. At this moment, Ji Chao was going to go all out without holding back. That brat was simply no match for him. Hearing this, Su Yuntian was speechless. Everyone knew that Sui had held back. If that dagger had landed on Ji Chao's neck, it would have been enough to kill Ji Chao. But to be honest, at this moment, Ji Chao was indeed not defeated. Sui had already vomited blood. It seemed that his injuries were much more serious than Ji Chao's. At best, Ji Chao's injuries were only superficial wounds. Boom! Suddenly, the square trembled slightly, and an aura fluctuated. Sensing the fluctuation of this aura, the upper echelons and experts of the various large clans all looked towards the source of the aura. This aura came from Sui. At this moment, a powerful aura swept out from Suyi's body like boiling water. His robes fluttered, his hair fluttered, and his eyes were crimson red. However, if one looked closely, the crimson red color was like a burning flame. At this moment, Suyi's aura was like a completely different person. How can a first-level soul essence realm cultivator's aura be so strong? In an instant, some people were shocked. Everyone could sense that Sui was not holding back his aura at all. He was only at the first level of the essence soul realm. But the aura emanating from Su Yi's body made people deeply shocked. At this moment, under the aura emanating from Su Yi's body, the upper echelons and experts of the various large clans all secretly trembled. They felt their hearts palpitate, and there was an involuntary desire to submit to Su Yi surging out from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if they were facing an awakened emperor. For a person at the first level of the essence soul realm to be able to give them such a sensation, how could they not be shocked? This aura is too strange. Lu Zongyuan's eyes trembled. At this moment, it was clear that the aura emanating from Ji Chao's body was stronger and higher. But the aura emanating from Su Yi's body carried a great majesty, as if he was an emperor that could not be provoked. Domineering and sharp, majestic and destructive. His eyes were crimson red like flames. At this moment, Su Yi's body seemed to be suppressed. The supreme origin technique automatically activated, and a billowing will to battle surged out from his chest. What does the Saint Mountain count for? Barbarian City is not a place for you to show off. Under the billowing will to battle, such a loud shout came from Su Yi's mouth. His skinny body stood straight, his hair fluttering, his robes fluttering in the wind. For some reason, it gave people a feeling that their blood was boiling. Su Yi, kill him. Under the spectator stands, Fatty Wong could not help but shout out loudly. But then he seemed to have thought of his father sitting in front of him, instantly lowering his voice. That's right, Su Yi, kill him. Kill him, Su Yi. Within the crowd, it was not known who started this shout. Following that, the shouts of young people rose and fell one after another. There were many young people who were dissatisfied with Ji Chao's words. It had to be said that Su Yi's word originally carried a kind of exaggeration and incitement. At this moment, all the young people were boiling with anger, unanimously opposing the outside. No matter what, at this moment Su Yi was representing Barbarian City. Originally, everyone was yearning and in awe of him, but Ji Chao's words were unacceptable to the people of Barbarian City. Young people were originally hot-blooded and had long been unhappy. Fatty Wong secretly looked at his father in front of him. Seeing that his father did not seem to say anything at this moment, he suddenly became bold and continued to shout, Su Yi, kill that kid. Hearing the boiling shouts that shook the sky, Ji Chao's face became even more ghastly. Layers of black yuan qi fluctuated around his body, as if it had solidified and rotated around him. Boom! The square faintly trembled, the ground all around shaking. A terrifying aura spread out from Ji Chao's body, sweeping the surrounding debris into the air. Under such an aura, almost all the eyes in the square fell on Ji Chao again, their eyes filled with astonishment. And the experts and higher-ups of the various large clans were even more shocked. They could all tell that such an aura, Ji Chao was indeed a disciple of the Saint Mountain. The cultivation method that he practiced was absolutely extraordinary. KB square root unspecified currency / the cultivation method that he practices is at least of the king grade. Lu Zong deeply breathed in, suppressing the shock in his heart. There are differences in cultivation methods. Strictly speaking, cultivation methods and the talent of martial cultivators were the same. There are also ordinary grade, good grade, general grade, commander grade, king grade, royal grade, and even a legendary heaven grade. Within the cultivation techniques, each grade was further divided into 3 subgrades, namely the elementary, intermediate, and advanced stages. Within the large clans of Barbarian City, the purple yuan arts of the Su family, the clear cloud arts of the Lu family had only barely reached the early stages of the good grade. From this, one could see the difference between Barbarian City and Saint Mountain. King grade cultivation method. The experts and higher-ups of the various large clans were all secretly shocked. Chapter 29. Therefore, the disciples nurtured by the major sects had already surpassed ordinary people from the very beginning. They would not start from the same starting line. Therefore, everyone wanted to send their juniors to the sacred mountain to receive the best training. The terrifying aura swept out in all directions, affecting Su Yi. But at this moment, the aura on Su Yi's body was boiling and emitting a light that became more and more dazzling. The imposing and fierce aura that could not be challenged became even more intense. It seems like a real battle is about to begin. Feeling the formless aura from the two youths in the square, the gazes around the square turned solemn. Everyone could feel the tense atmosphere in the square. One was a disciple from the sacred mountain, an existence that was blessed by the heavens. The other was the scourge of Man City, who had always been called a scourge. After 3 years, he seemed to have become a completely different person. At this moment, the two youths made everyone in Man City tremble and hold their breaths in anticipation. Kid, if you can survive this, I will remember you forever. You will always remember my name. Ji Chao opened his mouth with a sinister expression. At some point in time, cracks began to appear on the square around his feet, and the ground quietly turned into fine powder. When his voice fell, Ji Chao's black yuan qi covered both his hands. From his 10 fingers, the black earth attribute yuan qi fluctuated like a black liquid and flowed on his palms. Finally, it formed a black halo that was several feet in diameter in front of his hands. The black light on the halo was deep and gave off an incomparably vast feeling, as if it had turned into a huge mountain. All unorthodox methods and underhanded tricks, in the face of absolute strength, cannot withstand a single blow. Ji Chao raised his foot and took a step forward. His hands formed a seal, and an intense aura spread out from his body, causing the ground to tremble. Great Mountain Fist! A gloomy and awe-inspiring voice rang out from Ji Chao's mouth. The black halo in front of his hands suddenly exploded. The black earth attribute Yuan Qi erupted like a flood and swept out in all directions. Accompanied by the sound of the void trembling, it rapidly streaked across the space and instantly enveloped Su Yi. Wherever the black halo passed, there would be fist imprints that glowed and covered a large area. The surrounding square's ground cracked, and shattered rocks flew everywhere. So powerful, I'm afraid that even an ordinary first-level Yuan Profound Realm practitioner might not be able to withstand such an attack. Ji Chao had used his full strength in this attack, and it was extremely terrifying. Many of the sharp-eyed individuals present could sense that even a true first-level Yuan Profound Stage practitioner might not be able to withstand such an attack. When Ji Chao attacked without holding back, Su Yuntian, Su Jingting, and the rest's faces turned grave. Original 2 edition first release. At this moment, all eyes in the square were fixed on Su Yi, not daring to blink. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air for Su Yi. At the same time, Su Yi, who was the most direct target, could feel a powerful attack. The black halo spread out and covered the surroundings. Like a huge mountain, it swept down with a force of 10,000 kilograms. However, it was precisely because of this that Su Yi circulated the Origin Supreme art in his body. An aura that could not be provoked gushed out, tyrannical, imposing, and destructive. Su Yi's eyes seemed to be burning with raging flames at this moment. The plentiful Yuan power in his body surged within his meridians, causing his originally wide meridians to swell. On his skin, they looked like squirming little snakes, faintly emitting the sonorous sounds of wind and thunder from within his body. "Break for me!" Su Yi loudly shouted. Immediately, he shook his arm and punched forward. At this moment, the light on Su Yi's fist was dazzling, as if it was covered by a layer of light film. Using the most tyrannical and formidable method, he directly punched out. This time, there was no way to avoid such a confrontation. Immediately, the two fists collided. Under the stunned gazes of the crowd, this collision swept out a gale. It was as if a boulder had been thrown into water, causing ripples to shoot out and rapidly spread out. Crack, crack. Small cracks appeared on the ground around the square one after another, densely covering it like a spiderweb. In the square, light shone brightly, causing people's hearts to surge. The confrontation between the two youths actually had such a momentum. Everyone was dumbfounded and shocked. In such a collision, the Yuan power film on Su Yi's fist was in a deadlock for a while. Finally, it could not withstand the pressure of the black halo and began to show signs of cracking. Then, it exploded and was directly shattered. Is Su Yi going to lose? The experts from the 5 great clans trembled. After all, the difference in cultivation was too great. This was a huge disparity, and Su Yi was ultimately not a match for him. Su Yi can have such an imposing manner. It's already not simple. The experts from the 5 great clans secretly trembled. Su Yi was able to fight with Ji Chao to such an extent with his cultivation at the first layer of the Essence Soul realm. How could this be the talent of servant? It was already not simple. Trash is trash. Unorthodox means can't withstand a single blow. You're dead. Seeing that the Yuan power film on Su Yi's fist was already shattering, Ji Chao sneered. A cold light flickered in his eyes, and a trace of killing intent suddenly surged out. Ji Chao went all out and had the intention to kill. This kid actually dared to injure him. He could not let him go no matter what. Do you really think that just because you're from the Sacred Mountain, you could be so high and mighty? What can you do to me? Suddenly, and also at this moment, a terrifying light surged out from Su Yi's scarlet flame-like eyes. At this moment, Su Yi could clearly feel that the mysterious ball of light in his mind was glowing, and a strange power was spreading out in an instant. This strange power was more like a message, driving the Yuan power in Su Yi's entire Dantian's sea of Yuan power to travel back and forth within his body. This aura was like a guide, moving through Su Yi's meridians in a special way. Every time it entered a new meridian, the Yuan power seemed to be even more overbearing and vigorous, making Su Yi's meridians feel like they were about to explode. If not for the 3 years of tempering his body, Su Yi's meridians would not be able to withstand such a huge amount of Yuan power. In an instant, the Yuan power traveled through his meridians and then gathered on Su Yi's right fist. Su Yi's meridians had already been pushed to a critical point, as if they were about to explode at any time. The intense pain caused the veins on his face to bulge, making him look even more ferocious. The Yuan power in his entire Dantian sea of Yuan power converged on his fist. At this moment, the shattered Yuan power on Su Yi's fist instantly recovered and shone brightly. Overlord Fist. At the same time, Su Yi shouted loudly. Within his fist, a terrifying Yuan power exploded in front of his fist like an erupting volcano. Rumble! At this moment, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Su Yi's fist, which was shining brightly, seemed to swell up. There was a clear sound of wind and thunder that resounded, like thunder, rumbling. It was as if an overlord had awakened, as if an emperor had descended, and an enormous pressure resounded, bringing with it a destructive aura. At the same time, there was a feeling of fluctuation in the surrounding space. An abnormally violent energy suddenly exploded when Su Yi and Ji Chao's fists collided. Bang! A huge gust of wind formed a shockwave, shooting out like a storm. Chapter 30. Although the upper echelons and experts of the various large clans did not feel anything, their eyes were filled with shock. Everyone looked at the wind and energy storm that was spreading out. All of them could feel the tyrannical sharpness and the destructive energy contained within the majestic aura. Su Yuntian, Su Jingting, and the Su family's grand elders' eyes were filled with violent waves. This terrifying aura was definitely not something that any cultivation technique of the Su family could possess. How can there be such a powerful aura? At this moment, Wang Xuanda's eyes were filled with shock. He could not understand how that brat Su Yi could possess such a powerful aura. A first-level Essence Soul Realm cultivator was actually stronger than Ji Chao, who was at the peak of the 9th-level Essence Soul Realm. Especially the terrifying aura that erupted from Su Yi's final punch. That tyrannical and imposing aura of destruction made Wang Xuanda realize that it was definitely not ordinary. Cultivation technique, martial technique, there must be something mysterious about that brat. Wang Chuanda pondered. Without a doubt, there was definitely something mysterious about Su Yi's body, or perhaps his cultivation technique and martial technique were extraordinary. Ji Chao's cultivation technique and martial technique were both at the king grade and above. At this moment, the aura that erupted from Su Yi far surpassed Ji Chao's. If it was because of his cultivation technique and martial technique, then how terrifying would Su Yi's cultivation technique and martial technique be? How could Wang Chuanda not be shocked by this? A terrifying gale swept out, causing everyone to turn pale with fright as their eyes trembled in shock. Although the surrounding spectators were far away, they could still feel this terrifying aura. The upper echelons of the various large clans immediately fixed their gazes on the two people who had caused this energy storm. This kind of collision was about to determine the victor. Under many vicious gazes, the black Yuan Qi and the dazzling Yuan Qi vortex between Su Yi and Ji Chao became even more intense. They devoured and collided with each other, then swept towards the two people like lightning. Pucci. When the energy swept out, Ji Chao and Su Yi immediately spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. Swish! Both of them were sent flying away. After several tens of feet, they brushed against a corner of the square and flew back several tens of feet before coming to a stop. The two instigators were sent flying, and after the storm of energy spread to a certain distance, it stopped abruptly and disappeared without a trace. Ji Chao, Su Yi. At the same time, the expert from the Saint Mountain and the Su family's old master, Su Yuntian's expression greatly changed. They immediately rushed to Ji Chao and Su Yi's side. However, at this moment, Ji Chao and Su Yi's mouths were dripping with blood, and they had already fainted. In a daze, Su Yi felt as if his entire body was about to explode after that mysterious punch. Then, his consciousness seemed to have fallen into a dazzling vortex. Am I going to die again? Su Yi was a little sad. Was he going to die like he did in his previous life? This time, he might not be so lucky as to be reborn. Even if he could be reborn again, Su Yi's heart was extremely reluctant. Although he was reborn in this world and had the memories of his previous life, in this world he had a grandfather who loved him dearly and parents who seemed to have their own difficulties. Although some people in the Su family were ordinary in a large family, this was normal. Su Yi was very clear that there was also the great elder, Su Baihan, and many others in the Su family who had treated him well since he was young. They were just a little resentful of him for not living up to their expectations. There were also a few aunts in the Su family who did not distance themselves from him because of his hedonistic behavior and inaction. Since he was young, they had secretly cared for him. There was also that girl, one who had been alone since she was young. If he died, she would be alone in this world again. In an instant, Su Yi remembered many things. He absolutely could not die. He had to live well. Unknowingly, there were many things in this world that he could not let go of. All this time, after being reborn in this world, Su Yi more or less looked at everything with the identity of an outsider, as if he was an outsider in this world. But now, Su Yi understood that his previous life was no longer important. He was living in the present, and the present was the most important thing. I don't want to die. I can't die. Su Yi shouted in his heart, but he could not make sound. Boom. Perhaps it was because of Su Yi's reluctance and desire, but the dazzling vortex suddenly exploded. The dazzling light was mottled, and it was incomparably dazzling. It was impossible to look directly at it, and the feeling of falling disappeared. When his vision returned, Su Yi could not even see clearly what was in front of him. He could not help but feel his hair stand on end, and his skin was burning. What could he do? A terrifyingly high temperature filled the air, and it was as if his soul was about to be burned and withered. This terrifyingly high temperature seemed to be able to incinerate everything. Su Yi felt as if he was about to evaporate into thin air. Oh, Guji! There was a shocking roar of a beast. It was like thunder from the ninth heaven, piercing through clouds and splitting stone. It resounded in the surroundings, deafening and terrifying. Everything around him became clear in Su Yi's consciousness. When the clear scene appeared, Su Yi's hair stood on end. At this moment, he saw that he was surrounded by a vast and boundless void. Red flames spread in all directions, illuminating the heaven and earth. The dazzling flames seemed to have descended from the depths of the sky, like intertwining divine chains, filling the void. There were incomparably huge, demonic beasts occupying the heaven and earth. Terrifying auras surged, and there were divine halos shrouding the surroundings. There was a huge shadow of a beast spreading its wings, covering the vast void. Standing in front of it, it was like comparing an ant to the heaven and earth. It was incomparably small. There was also a huge tiger, covered in white light, about to pounce and roaring like thunder. There was a huge bird spreading its wings, covering the sky and earth, surging with 7 colored flames. Its 2 eyes were like 2 seas of fire, and it was especially terrifying, as if it could incinerate everything. There was a huge turtle standing in the void, with a turtle and a snake intertwined. The ink-black light overflowed into the sky, and there was divine light constantly rising behind it, as if it was suppressing the heaven and earth. There was a huge dragon circling, surrounded by tens of thousands of rays of light, with auspicious colors. Clouds were born under its claws, as if it could tear the heaven and earth apart. There was a huge figure thousands of feet tall, occupying the heaven and earth like a god, and strange phenomena constantly appeared in the surroundings. There was a river of stars falling, and the surrounding stars were rotating. There was a huge shadow standing between the heaven and earth, and the stars were rotating in its palm. How shocking it was, as if it was a Buddha! Rumble, wind and thunder resounded in the void, and the rumbling sound was like the sound of the heavens, sonorous and ear-splitting. This kind of momentum was too shocking, as if it was going to tear the universe apart. Under the terrifying momentum, Su Yi's consciousness was about to be crushed. Under the powerful collapse, he fainted again. Chapter 31. The barbarian city's holy mountain disciple selection had come to an end. Although there were still several challenges, some young people of the right age could choose those who passed the test. As long as they won, they would be able to obtain a spot in the holy mountain. There were several challenges after that, and the targets were He-san, Song Wuchio, and a few others. Unfortunately, no one succeeded. Moreover, these kinds of challenges could no longer arouse the original enthusiasm of the spectators. The reason was simple. Su Yi and Ji Chao's battle was too unexpected, and it had deeply shocked the barbarian city. Su Yi and Ji Chao's battle ended with both of them fainting due to heavy injuries. They were brought back to the Su family and Lu family respectively. In the end, this battle could only be considered a draw. This result deeply shocked every spectator in the barbarian city. If it was said that Su Yi won by opportunistic means, although the spectators were shocked, they could understand. But in the end, everyone witnessed it with their own eyes. In the second battle, Su Yi did not use any opportunistic means. It was a head-on confrontation. With a cultivation of first layer soul essence realm, he fought Ji Chao, who was at the peak of 9th layer soul essence realm. Both sides suffered heavy injuries, and the outcome was a draw. Ji Chao, a disciple from the Holy Mountain, was like a proud son of heaven with a king-grade talent. At such a young age, he was already at the peak of 9th layer soul essence realm, only one step away from the profound origin realm. Su Yi, 3 years ago, was just a dandy. His talent was not worth mentioning. But now, 3 years later, Su Yi had returned. Yesterday, he heavily injured Ji Chao with one move, and today, he was able to force Ji Chao to a draw with his full strength in 2 moves. This shocked the entire barbarian city. A first layer soul essence realm martial artist can fight to a draw with a peak 9th layer soul essence realm martial artist from the Holy Mountain. How can Su Yi be a servant? Too strong, Su, this brat did not embarrass our barbarian city. From now on, I will become his fan. Su is too handsome. That brat from the holy mountain is too arrogant, saying that our barbarian city is trash. This time, he must have been slapped in the face. A peak 9th layer soul essence realm martial artist. Even Su, who is at 1st layer soul essence realm, couldn't gain the slightest advantage. Su is really strong. At dusk, the setting sun dyed man's city red like blood. The entire barbarian city was still in an uproar. Everyone was talking about the battle between Su, and Ji Chao from the Sacred Mountain. In the study of the Liu family, Liu Zhengyin narrowed his eyes, gazing outside the window at the sunset that covered half the sky, as if he was deep in thought about something. Master, I've just received news that Ji Chao's life is no longer in danger. He's already woken up, but his injuries are not light. An old man hurried into the study. Phew! Liu Zongyuan let out a long breath. His face slightly moved, his expression relaxing a little. I really didn't expect that little brat Su to be so powerful. Ji Chao actually didn't have the slightest advantage over him. The old man couldn't help but exclaim in shock. If this is a true life and death battle, Ji Chao is not his opponent at all. It looks like after 3 years in the barbaric demon forest, that little brat is no longer the same as before. Liu Zhengyin slightly lifted his eyes, a light flickering in his eyes. It's a pity that Su only has the qualifications to be a servant. The old man said regretfully. To be able to fight to a draw with a peak 9th level Yuan Spirit Realm expert of the Sacred Mountain, with a cultivation at the 1st level of the Yuan Spirit Realm, how can such a person really have the qualifications to be a servant? Liu Zongyuan faintly smiled. If a person at the 1st level of the Yuan Spirit Realm, who could fight to a draw with a peak 9th level Yuan Spirit Realm expert of the Sacred Mountain, was truly a servant, then such a servant would be so rare that it was pitiful. Master's meaning, could it be? Hearing this, the old man's eyes instantly brightened. Could be that Su, that little brat, is hiding something? Whether or not he's hiding something, I don't know. But on the body of that little brat, Su, there is definitely some sort of secret hidden. Liu Zongyuan said with certainty. Hearing this, the old man's expression slightly changed. Then he asked Liu Zongyuan, then what about the marriage between Ruashi and Su? Originally, it was an agreement between Master and the old man of the Su family. Right now, that Ji Chao has not gained any advantage. That little brat Su has always been different from others. In truth, it's not that I don't like him. It's just that, after a moment of silence, as if he was thinking about something, Liu Zhengyin suddenly smiled faintly. Fine, since I can't do anything about it right now, I might as well not do anything about it. Master, if you don't do anything about it, the old man of the Su family will not let it go. The old man was taken aback. He was very clear in his heart that the old man of the Su family was absolutely not someone that was easy to get rid of. I'm not talking about this. Liu Zongyuan smiled mysteriously. The personality of that little brat Su is very much to my liking. Since I can't do anything about Ruashi, then I might as well let them decide for themselves in the future. Hearing this, the old man was somewhat shocked. Then with some worry, he said, Master, even if it's like this, the Sacred Mountain will not agree. Ji Chao did not gain any advantage. Protector Wong will most likely not say anything about this matter. As for the future, that will depend on that little brat Su. After all, this matter was caused by him, so it's becoming more and more interesting. Liu Zhengyin once again looked outside the window. Looking at the red clouds covering the sky, the corners of his mouth twitched. He muttered to himself, Su Linfeng, you won against me before. If you have the ability, then let your son win against my daughter. The Su family. At this moment, there was a strange atmosphere in the Su family. There was shock, joy, and also worry. Everyone was happy and shocked because of Su Yi's performance today. Defeating a disciple of the Sacred Mountain, just how shocking was that? This was the first time that Su had won glory for the Su family, and it was a great deal of face for them. But what the Su family was worried about was that at this moment, Su was said to still be unconscious having suffered heavy injuries. This is not a good thing, it's causing trouble. Offending the people of the sacred mountain. In the future, Su Wei will most likely face difficulties everywhere in the sacred mountain. But there were also people who were worried. After all, Su Yi still had to go to the sacred mountain to train. Today, Su Yi had undoubtedly completely offended Protector Wang and the others, which was the same as offending the sacred mountain. This would most likely have a great impact on Su Wei's future in the sacred mountain. In Su Yi's courtyard, there had always been many people. This was also the first time that Su Yi had so many people after returning to the Su family. "Old man, how is Su Yi?" In front of the bed, there were old men and women of the Su family who were worried, asking old man Su Yuntian. "Everyone will go. If there is any news, I will naturally tell you. Don't cause trouble here." Old man Su Yuntian waved his sleeves as he stared at the unconscious Su Yi on the bed with a solemn expression. "Yes, old man." After the old man spoke, no one dared to say anything more and left. In the entire room, there was only old man Su Yuntian, Su Jingting, and Su Wan'er, who had an incomparably worried expression. "Father, how is Su Yi?" Su Jingting asked, swallowing some medicinal pills. At this moment, the complexion on his face was much better. #look unspecified currency. Original Daliu chapter E, $, Poo. Just as Su Jingting's voice fell, old man Su Yuntian spat out a mouthful of blood. "Father." Chapter 32. At the side, Su Wan'er and Su Jingting's expressions changed greatly. They immediately rushed to old master Su Yuntian's side. "Father, are you hurt?" Su Jingting had a heavy expression on his face. He was extremely worried. Ever since he was young, he had always treated Su Yuntian as his own father. Everything he had now was given to him by this old man before him. "That Wang Chuanda is indeed from the sacred mountain. He's very strong. I'm fine." Su Yuntian shook his head and looked at Su Jingting. "Protect me. I need a healing. I'm afraid the so-called famous doctors in Barbarian City won't be of much use." "But father, you're already injured. If you use your own Yuan Qi to heal Su Yi, I'm afraid your injuries will worsen. Besides, you're preparing to break through. If you heal Su Yi now, the consequences will be unimaginable." "Let me do it." Su Jingting was very clear that his father was already heavily injured. If he were to expend his own Yuan Qi to heal Su Yi, it would definitely worsen his injuries. His father's cultivation had been stagnant for a long time. If his injuries worsened, the impact would be huge. He might not be able to continue to break through to the next level. "You're also injured. Besides, I'm afraid your cultivation base is not high enough. Go stand guard. Wan'er, you withdraw as well." Su Yuntian had made up his mind. Nothing was more important than his grandson. Su Jingting knew his father's character. Although he was unwilling and his expression was solemn, he didn't say anything more. Su Wan'er looked worriedly at Su Yi, who had fainted on the bed. She then left the room with Su Jingting. As Su Jingting and Su Wan'er retreated, Su Yuntian helped the fainted Su Yi into a cross-legged sitting position. He pried open Su Yi's mouth with a pill and stuffed it inside before sitting cross-legged behind Su Yi. Voila! Q1 quickest start, Jay condensing his hand seals. Su Yi's robe fluttered slightly as Yuan Qi gushed out. Finally, his palm lightly touched the acupuncture point on Su Yi's back, and Yuan Qi slowly entered. When his Yuan Qi entered Su Yi's body, old master Su Yuntian finally realized the uniqueness of Su Yi's body. In the past, he had examined Su Yi. Although there was nothing wrong with him, he was unable to store Yuan Qi. However, at this moment, old master Su Yuntian could clearly feel the strength of Su Yi's physical body. His bones, muscles, and even his skin were vastly different from an ordinary person's. Although his skin looked like warm jade, it was actually incomparably tough, just like a powerful, savage beast. What shocked old master Su Yuntian even more was that Su Yi's meridians were much wider and thicker than other cultivators of the same level. This meant that the circulation and convergence of yuan qi in the meridians of the body was several times stronger than cultivators of the same level. Naturally, the strength of the attack would also be much stronger. This was probably one of the main reasons why he was able to contend against Ji Chao. At this moment, old Master Su Yintian was almost certain that he must have experienced something in the past 3 years in the barbarian demon forest. In a daze, He felt as if his entire body was wrapped in warm water. His entire body was indescribably comfortable, and in his mind, it was as if a lot of information had been forcefully poured into his brain, filling it up. At night, the moon was dark and the stars were bright. Liu family in a quiet courtyard. Recently, this was the resting place of the experts from the sacred mountain. No one dared to disturb them. On the bed, Ji Chao sat cross-legged. His breathing was weak and his face was deathly pale. Ji Chao's expression was dispirited. At this moment, his right fist was wrapped in gauze. There were traces of blood seeping out. This was the injury he received from Su Yi's last punch during the day. It almost shattered all the bones in his hand. "Uncle, that kid is too strange. He's not normal at all." Recalling the aura he felt from Su Yi's last punch during the day, Ji Chao still had some lingering fear in his heart. The aura that Su Yi suddenly erupted at the last moment was tyrannical, fierce, and majestic. It made him tremble in fear. He had never faced such a terrifying aura before. It's indeed very abnormal. Very abnormal. How can a first-layer, soul, essence realm cultivator contend with you? Wang Xuanda's gaze was also pensive, as if he was pondering something. "Uncle, is that kid dead yet? If he's not dead, you must not agree to that marriage. My Sacred Mountain's disciple is not someone he can match up to," Ji Chao said to Wang Xuanda. On his deathly pale face, there was a sinister look of resentment in his eyes. Even now, Ji Chao still found it hard to imagine that the trash with the qualifications of an errand worker actually made him pay such a tragic price. If this news were to spread back to the Sacred Mountain, he would most likely become the laughingstock of the entire Sacred Mountain. I know your thoughts are also on Ruoxin, but you should know that with your current status in the Sacred Mountain, I'm afraid your chances are not great. Wang Xuanda stared at Ji Chao. How could he not understand the thoughts of this grandnephew of his? After a moment of silence, his eyes darkened, and he slightly raised his head. A glint flashed across his eyes as he continued. "As for the marriage, it's naturally impossible. But at present, I can't say anything about it." But his voice paused for a moment. Wang Xuanda's face darkened, and then a sneer flashed across his face. "If that kid dies, then forget it. But if he's still alive, then we can only bring him back to the Sacred Mountain." "Uncle, bringing that kid back to the Sacred Mountain, won't that be more troublesome?" Ji Chao was flabbergasted and very puzzled. "What do you know? When the time comes, I have my own arrangements. I really hope that kid doesn't die. Perhaps this is an opportunity for me, Wang Xuanda. If I can take another step forward, coupled with my family's connections, becoming an Intermountain protector will be a cinch," Wang Xuanda said in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with expectation, but also coldness. The red sun had just risen, and the ink-blue mountain peak was covered in mist. The blue peak was like an ink painting of mountains and rivers. When the red clouds rose, the mountains were verdant and glistening. The mist that had yet to disperse was like elegant silk shrouding the mountains. In the distance, the verdant mountain range overlapped with each other, like the undulating waves of the sea, surging and surging, majestic and magnificent. Xiao, on top of the mountain peak, a graceful and beautiful figure was so beautiful. Her hand formed a sword sign, and her lotus-like wrist rotated the sword hilt. The sword in her hand was suffused with light, and, as her body swayed, it slowly rotated. Such a graceful and beautiful figure. Her red clothes were like fire, and her body was as light as a swallow. Accompanied by Xiao, sounds of wind breaking, the sword flashed like lightning. The sword flashed, but it blended together with the verdant and fire-like red clothes around her, as if it was a part of the heavens. Gradually, the sword in the red-clothed girl's hand spun faster and faster, sweeping up the petals and gravel on the ground. A faint fragrance of flowers floated in the air, and the gravel rolled up a storm. At this moment, the red-clothed girl's sword was like a white snake spitting out its tongue, and also like a swimming dragon. Sometimes it was as light as a swallow, sometimes it was as fast as lightning. Chapter 33. Whoosh! After a long time, the red-clothed girl finally stopped. She looked to be around 15 or 16 years old. Her eyes were bright, her skin was as white as snow, and she was incomparably beautiful. It's been 3 years. I wonder if that pervert is still alive to return to the barbarian city. Gazing at the sky, the red-clothed girl raised her willowy eyebrows and pouted her tender red lips. She softly said, "Pervert, you better not die in the barbarian demon forest. I want to personally teach you a lesson one day. Why do I not want him to die in the barbarian demon forest? Why do I have to constantly think of that pervert's figure in these 3 years?" After a long time, the red-clothed girl muttered to herself, "Shouldn't she want that pervert to die in the barbarian demon forest? I just want to personally take care of that pervert." Soon after, the red-clothed girl seemed to have found the answer for herself. She faintly smiled, and her beautiful face glowed. Even though she was only 15 or 16 years old, she had already grown into a slender and elegant woman. In another 2 years, who knows what kind of femme fatale she would become. Dawn, like a sword, split open the curtain of night. The Sioux family. When Sue-E, who was sitting cross-legged, spat out a mouthful of black blood, he finally regained consciousness. Sue-E could feel 2 warm breaths flowing into his body from his back. Sue-Ye's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. "Ear, how are you?" A familiar voice entered Sue-Ye's ears, and the 2 warm breaths behind him also disappeared. Sue-E slowly turned around. When he saw the familiar figure behind him, his pale face couldn't help but change. Sue-Ye's gaze landed on his grandfather, Su-Yuntian. But at this moment, his grandfather's long hair was as white as strands of silver. His originally aged face had aged by more than 10 years and was as pale as ash. "Grandfather!" Sue-E cried out in alarm and struggled to turn around. "Don't make a fuss. I'm fine. I just used too much energy." A smile appeared on Su-Yuntian's face. Looking at the awakened Sue-E, he asked, "How do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Hearing this, Sue-E subconsciously sensed his own body. Although his injuries were serious, they did not seem to be anything serious. Instead, there were 2 streams of yuan qi that were exactly the same, but did not belong to him flowing through his meridians. This should be the doing of his grandfather, Su-Yuntian. "Grandpa, I'm fine. You shouldn't have done this for me." Sue-E quickly understood that his grandfather's sudden change had a lot to do with him. Sue-E also noticed the bloodstains on Su-Yuntian's chest. He was afraid that his grandfather had been injured, and it was very likely that he had been taught by Wang Chuanda in the sacred mountain. At this moment, all sorts of emotions welled up in her heart. Ever since she was young, it seemed that she had never given the old man any peace of mind. Now, the old man had even done so much for her. That's good, that's good. It's good that you're fine. Grandpa is old and won't live for long. You're different. You're the future of the Sioux clan, my flesh and blood." Hearing Su-Ye's words, Su-Yuntian was very happy. Su-Yi was finally fine. "Grandpa!" Su-Ye's heart ached, and he felt extremely guilty. "Ear, in these 3 years in the barbarian demon forest, did something happen to you? Or did you obtain some kind of opportunity?" Su-Yuntian asked. Yesterday, when Su-Yi had revealed his terrifying aura, and when it helped Su-Yi heal his injuries, he had personally felt the situation. In these 3 years, Su-Yi was probably not the same as before. "Grandpa," Su-Yi wanted to say something but hesitated. He knew what his grandfather wanted to ask. Regarding the mysterious ball of light in his mind, Su-Yi naturally didn't have anything to hide in front of his grandfather. But treasuring a jade ring becomes crime. In addition to everything that had happened while he was unconscious, Su-yi felt that the mysterious ball of light in his mind was far more mysterious than he had imagined. Perhaps the less his grandfather knew, the better. Grandpa actually doesn't want to know anything, but you have to remember, treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. No matter what, some things should be used less subtly in front of others. In front of people who don't have absolute strength, you must not attract too much attention. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. The pile piled high above the shore will be swept away by the current. You must remember this. Su-yi Tian thought that Su-yi didn't want to say, so he sincerely said this. Grandson knows. I will definitely pay attention. Su-yi looked at his grandfather who had aged 10 years. For some reason, his eyes were somewhat moist. All of this was because of him. Grandpa, there will be a day when I will definitely become an expert. I will definitely find that powerful pill for Grandpa to prolong your life and increase your cultivation. I don't have the talent to do odd jobs. Everything depends on effort. Old man Su-yi Tian let out a hearty laugh, but on his old and pale face, the smile was incomparably brilliant. He said, the qualifications of an odd-job worker can a first-stage soul essence realm contend against a peak ninth-stage soul essence realm from St. Mountain? What bullshit! How can my Su-yi Tian's grandson be mediocre? I've always known that my Su-yi Tian's grandson cannot be mediocre. Su-yi asked. He was a bit worried. He had fainted, so he didn't know what had happened to Ji Chao. Could it be that he had lost? That kid isn't much better than you. He also fainted. You two can be considered a draw. Su-yi Tian was very happy. After his examination, he was even more certain that his grandson didn't have the talent to do odd jobs. Father, old man. Following old man Su-yi Tian's loud laughter, Su Jingting and Su Wonder, who had been guarding outside the door all night, were alarmed. They immediately rushed in. Brother, seeing Su-yi wake up, Wonder was pleasantly surprised. But when she saw Su-yi's pale face, she was extremely worried. Father, seeing old man Su-yi Tian's expression, Su Jingting's eyes trembled. This was exactly what he was worried about the most. All right, let Su-yi heal himself. No one is allowed to disturb him. Su-yi Tian interrupted Su Jingting's words and got off the bed. He threw a white jade bottle to Su-yi and said to Su-yi, there are a few origin spirit pills here. Take them and recover quickly. Patting Su-yi's shoulder, old man Su-yi Tian seemed very happy. But at this moment, his old figure seemed to be tottering and very weak. Su Jingting supported old man Su-yi Tian and left the room with a dignified expression. Brother, it's good that you're fine. You really scare me to death this time. Su Wonder looked at Su-yi. Her eyes were bloodshot. She hadn't slept the entire night and was still worried. But now she was truly relieved. Of course I'll be fine. Go and rest. Su-yi retracted his gaze from his grandfather's back and looked at Su-won. It wasn't hard to see that this girl hadn't slept the entire night. Cultivators were naturally fine, but Su-won was an ordinary person. Adding on her worry, she probably wouldn't be able to endure it. All right, brother, hurry and heal yourself. You must get better quickly. Wan nodded and left. She knew that her brother needed to be healed. Old man Su had already told her just now. When she reached the door, Su-won smiled and looked back at Su-yi. Brother, in my heart, no one can compare to you. You are the most powerful person in Wan-er's heart. Chapter 34. A smile appeared on Su-yi's face. When Su-won closed the door, the smile on Su-yi's face disappeared. Strength. I want to become strong. I need strength. Quietly clenching his fists, Su-yi felt the importance of strength more and more. If he had enough strength, how could the sacred mountain bully others in front of him? If he had enough strength, how could he let his uncle and grandfather get injured? Facing the sacred mountain, Su-yi knew very well that if Wang Chuanda and his grandfather had really fought yesterday, his grandfather would not have been able to resist in the end. He could only watch helplessly as his grandfather was defeated, unable to do anything. And now, his grandfather was seriously injured and had paid so much for him. He secretly swore that he could not go on like this. He must become strong as soon as possible. In the future, he would not allow anyone to hurt his loved ones. Origin Supreme Technique. What is the origin of that mysterious ball of light? Then, He muttered to himself. Whether he could become strong or not, perhaps it would depend on the Origin Supreme Technique. Yesterday, when he fought with Ji Chao, it was already difficult for him to hold on. At the last moment, the mysterious ball of light exploded with a strange power, causing the Overlord Fist that he used at the last moment to naturally dissolve into his mind. He still clearly remembered the feeling when he used the Overlord Fist. It was as if his meridians and internal organs were about to explode. He mobilized the Yuan Qi in the entire Yuan Qi vortex and gathered it into a fist. It even drew a mysterious kind of energy from heaven and earth. The momentum was domineering and fierce, majestic and destructive. At that moment, He felt that he was like a supreme emperor who could not be provoked. He wanted to destroy all who provoked him. Later, when he fainted, that terrifying scene, the huge shadow of a giant beast that covered the universe, the powerful figure of a Buddha, was shocking. Thinking back now, it was like a dream, but He was very clear that it was definitely not a dream. Among the giant beast shadows that covered the universe, there were clearly the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise that only existed in legends in his previous life. All of this was too shocking. No one would believe it, even if he told them about it. After fainting, He clearly knew that a huge amount of information had once again surged into his mind from that blazing hot aura. It was the complete primordial chaos supreme art. The primordial chaos supreme technique came from mysterious ball of light, and the Overlord Fist came from the primordial chaos supreme technique. He narrowed his eyes. From his fight with Ji Chao of the Holy Mountain, he was even more certain that the origin supreme art he obtained from the mysterious ball of light was no ordinary object. From the looks of it, whether or not he could become a powerhouse in the future depended on the primordial origin supreme art. Recuperate and comprehend the origin supreme art. He made a decision in his heart. At present, it seemed that the most important thing was to recover. After checking everything in his body again, he found that although his injuries were quite serious, his physical body was not seriously injured. All of this was probably due to the cultivation of his physical body over the past 3 years. The 3 years of inhuman tempering had not been in vain. It also proved the power of the primordial chaos supreme art. He did not care about general grade talent or king grade talent at the moment. No talent could compare to his own tempering. Elixir. He picked up the jade bottle beside him. It was left behind by his grandfather before he left. He was no stranger to elixirs. Back then, because he could not cultivate, his grandfather had made him take all kinds of expensive elixirs. However, he still could not store vitality in his body. However, he was very interested in alchemists who could refine elixirs. If he could refine elixirs, it would definitely be a great advantage. However, he also knew that those who could refine elixirs were extremely rare. Any one of them was as rare as a phoenix feather or a Chelan horn, and all the major forces fought to treat them as VIP guests. In the entire barbarian city, it seemed that only the Liu family had an alchemist. He still remembered the time when he was unable to store Yuan Qi in his body. His grandfather, Su Yuntian, personally went to the Liu family and paid a huge price to invite the alchemist to take a look at his condition. In the end, it was to no avail. Opening the jade bottle, He poured out 3 elixirs. They were all thumb-sized and filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. It almost made people salivate. Origin Spirit Elixir. He recognized the elixir in the jade bottle. It was a kind of healing elixir. According to Su Yi's understanding of this world, the elixirs in this world were divided into 7 grades: heaven, earth, black, yellow, star, and moon. Each grade was also divided into 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. According to the legends, taking one of the mysterious great elixirs was enough to directly become a powerhouse. Origin Spirit Elixir was a moon-grade elixir. It seemed to be only a beginner moon-grade elixir, but it was already very expensive. Ordinary people could not afford it. Looking at the elixir in his hand, Su-Yi knew that if he took it, it would have some effect. However, his injuries did not seem to be a big problem. After thinking for a while, Su-Yi decided not to take the elixir. He would just use his own body to heal. This elixir was not cheap. If he had the chance, he would return it to his grandfather. Su-Yi knew that it was not a good idea to carry such an expensive elixir with him. In addition, although his injuries were not a big problem, he needed to recover as soon as possible. Su-Yi knew where he could recover as fast as possible, but he did not have the strength to go out now. Anyway, this was the Su family. His grandfather had just said that no one could disturb him. After thinking for a while, Su-Yi formed a hand seal. He sat cross-legged on the bed and formed a mysterious and complicated hand seal. Why? Jin 8-inch immediately. When Su-Yi's hand seal was formed, there was a faint fluctuation of light between his eyebrows. It was like a ripple of divine brilliance, spreading all over his body and enveloping him in an instant. The dazzling hazy light suddenly spread out and densely covered the whole room. Fortunately, it was daytime, so it was difficult for people outside to notice anything strange. In the room, when the vision in front of him became clear, Su-Yi had already arrived in a mysterious space. Hey, what's going on? However, when Su-Yi appeared in this space, his face suddenly changed. This space was originally only about 30 feet in radius. At this moment, for some reason, it had increased by 3 times. It was now about 30 feet in radius. Not only did this space increase in size, but even the energy in this space became more intense and oppressive. The surroundings were hazy and emitted a faint light. What's going on? Chapter 35. Could it be? Suddenly, Su-Yi thought of something. Yesterday, when he was testing in the square, the mysterious light seemed to be devouring something, which caused the testing stone to turn into powder. The mysterious light absorbed the energy of the testing stone and then expanded the space, making the energy even richer. Su-Yi pondered. Besides this, he really couldn't think of any other reason. But no matter what, this was a good thing. During the 3 years in the barbaric demon forest, he had suffered countless serious injuries. In the end, he could only recover in this space. At this moment, the changes in this mysterious space made Su-Yi realize that his recovery speed would be faster. I really don't need these origin spirit pills. Su-Yi smiled and put the jade bottle of origin spirit pills to the side. Then he sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the origin supreme technique to adjust his breathing. In his mind, Su-Yi began to ponder the complete primordial chaos supreme technique that he had obtained. Time slowly passed. At some point, Su-Yi's body was enveloped in a dazzling light and merged with the mysterious space. At this moment, the energy in this space was really too rich. As Su-Yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique, the energy fluctuations of heaven and earth slowly flowed into Su-Yi's body. I really didn't expect that he would wake up so quickly. That's good. In the depths of the Liu family's courtyard, Wang Chuanda was shocked, but then he secretly sneered. Su-Yi also woke up. It seems that he really is neck and neck with Ji Chao. What happened in the past 3 years? Su-Yi doesn't seem like the same person as before. All the major forces and families received the news and were very surprised. In the Su family, because of the personal order of Old Master Su Yun-Tian, no one was allowed to go too far from Su-Yi. Therefore, when they knew that Su-Yi was awake, no one dared to go to Su-Yi's residence. This also helped Su-Yi. At this moment, in that mysterious space, the light around Su-Yi's body became more and more dazzling, and his originally bloodless face was now flushed red. Walala, within Su-Yi's body, Yuan Qi flowed through his meridians, emitting waves of vibrating sounds. If there were outsiders around, they would definitely be shocked. Jayan, look at the first chapter of you. Section S% upper MW. / just how dense and vigorous must one's Yuan Qi and meridians be to able to produce such a trembling sound in one's body? Within the Yuan Qi vortex in his dantian, Su Yi's nearly depleted Yuan Qi was once again filled to the brim. Su Yintian had left a lot of Yuan Qi in Su Yi's body, and this Yuan Qi was originally in Su Yi's meridians. But at this moment, as Su Yi operated the Origin Supreme technique, this Yuan Qi, together with the energy in this mysterious space, became Su Yi's own Yuan Qi. In addition to this mysterious space filled with energy, Su Yi's recovery speed was really unbelievably fast. Father, the Saint Mountain sent people to bring Su Yi to the Saint Mountain. What do you think? Su family, Su Yuntian's residence, in a quiet and simple courtyard, in a room, Su Jingting hurried over with a serious expression. Let her go to the Saint Mountain. Su Yuntian pondered. A moment later, he asked Su Jingting, Jingting, what do you think? Su Yi can be considered to have offended Wang Chuanda, and also formed a grudge with Ji Chao. If he goes to the Saint Mountain, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to avoid underhanded methods. Su Jingting seemed to have long been worried. Slightly frowning, he said to Su Yuntian, besides, with Lu Ruoshi's position in the Saint Mountain, if Su Yi goes to the Saint Mountain, I'm afraid it'll cause even more trouble. This is not something our Su family can participate in. I'm not afraid of underhanded methods. Ever since he was young, no one has dared to do such a thing in front of Er. Survived the 3 years in the barbarian demon forest. Su Yunqian's pale face revealed a trace of a happy smile. Hearing the old man's words, Su Jingting was somewhat helpless, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Indeed, when it came to underhanded methods, Su Yi had always been good at them. When it came to these things, perhaps he really did not fear those people in the Saint Mountain. But you're right to be worried. For Su Yi to go to the Saint Mountain now might not be a good thing. Su Yintian was also worried, his eyes narrowing. Then father means to not let Su Yi go to the Saint Mountain? Su Jingting raised his eyes and asked. No. Su Yintian shook his head and said to Su Jingting, the choice made 3 years ago was not wrong. Let continue to make his own choice. In a mysterious space, the energy of heaven and earth was rich. When Su Yi's hand seals stopped, the aura around his body calmed down, and his face regained its rosy color. When he opened his tightly shut eyes, his gaze was filled with astonishment, as if he had learned of something huge. So this is the true Origin Supreme art. It took a long time for Su Yi to recover. So what he had just obtained was the true and complete Origin Supreme art. After fainting yesterday, he had obtained a huge amount of information in that dreamlike space. That was the complete Origin Supreme art. From the complete Origin Supreme art, Su Yi had been reading and understanding it while he was healing his injuries. The Primeval Chaos Supreme technique was not just any ordinary technique. Su Yi was shocked to learn that the body he had tempered for the past 3 years was only at the first level. This was the primeval demon body of the Primeval Chaos Supreme technique. The Origin demon body had a total of 7 layers. The first layer was the diamond body. The second layer was the heavenly Origin demon soul. The first layer was the diamond body. Su Yi understood that it was the cultivation of the body. The second layer was the heavenly Origin demon soul. As for the third layer, Su Yi did not understand. It seemed that the names were also strange. And the Overlord Fist did indeed exist in the Origin Supreme art. It seemed to be a technique of the Origin Supreme art. While recuperating, Su Yi learned another technique from the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique. It was called 8 Baron Rage. I'm rich. Hee. Su Yi smiled. He knew very well what he had obtained. The Origin Supreme art was definitely much more powerful than the cultivation technique Ji Chao cultivated on the Sacred Mountain. The Overlord Fist alone was terrifying. He had cultivated his body for 3 years, but it seemed that he was only at the first layer of the Origin demon body. Su Yi was quite aware of the strength of his body. Otherwise, he would not have been able to directly resist Ji Chao's cultivation, which was at the peak of the 9th level of the Essence Soul Realm. This was the power of the first layer of the Origin demon body. If he cultivated to the 7th layer, How powerful would he be? Su-yi did not dare to imagine. He was looking forward to it. I seem to be fine. Then he felt that although the Yuan Qi in his Dantian and Xian Qi vortex was not full to the point of bursting, it was abundant. His injuries had also recovered. Su-yi knew that the reason he was able to recover so quickly was related to this mysterious space and the immemorial supreme technique that he cultivated. It's not safe. Let's go out first. Chapter 36. When Su-yi left the mysterious space, the setting sun shone through the window. Su-yi stood up and pushed the door open. He took a deep breath. Big brother. One had been guarding outside the door. Although she saw the light inside, she didn't disturb him. Seeing that Su-yi seemed to be fine and that his face had regained some color, she was pleasantly surprised. Silly girl, go rest. When Su-yi saw Warner, he knew that she had been guarding outside the door and hadn't gone to rest. His eyes were bloodshot and his heart ached. This girl hadn't rested for 2 days and 1 night. I'm fine, as long as Big Brother is fine. Warner smiled, her smile moving. Then she seemed to think of something and said to Su, "The patriarch sent someone here. It seems he has something to do with Big Brother, but I stopped him. He told Big Brother to go find the patriarch when he woke up." Uncle, Su-yi's eyebrows rose. Su-yi's feelings for this uncle of his were quite strange since he was young. From a young age, Su-yi's impression of this uncle was that he was incomparably strict. When he was young, he was even severely punished by this uncle several times. 3 years ago, this uncle was the first person to raise his hand in approval of going to the barbarian demon forest. To tell the truth, Su-yi was somewhat estranged from the bottom of his heart. That was why when he attacked Su Jiao and Su Wei in front of this uncle, he didn't show them any mercy. When Su-yi arrived at the inner court and saw Su Jingting, the sky was gradually darkening. "How are your injuries?" Looking at Su-yi, Su Jingting couldn't help but be shocked. From Su-yi's aura, Su-yi seemed to be completely fine. This recovery speed was too fast. "I'm fine." Su-yi shrugged his shoulders. Yesterday at the square, he was rather grateful to his uncle for standing in front of him and shielding him. "The Sacred Mountain sent someone here. You've already blocked 2 of Ji Chao's moves, so they can make an exception and take you to the Sacred Mountain. If you want to go, you'll have to leave tomorrow morning. If you don't want to go, then don't bother." Su Jingting suppressed the shock in his heart and said to Su-yi. His gaze was fixed on Su-yi's reaction. Sacred Mountain. Su-yi was also quite surprised. That Wang Chuanda wanted him to go to the Holy Mountain. He probably didn't have good intentions. There was no doubt about it. In his mind, Su-yi pondered. He had no intention of going to the Sacred Mountain, nor did he have a good impression of it. Su Jingting looked at Su-yi and said slowly, "There are some things that you should choose for yourself. You are the blood of the Su family, a member of the Su family. The old man fought with Wang Chuanda yesterday and was already suffering from internal injuries, but he was still holding on. Last night, he did everything he could to treat your injuries, adding injuries on top of injuries. If it's light, it will be difficult for him to advance any further. If it's heavy," his voice paused for a moment. Su Jingting looked straight at Su-yi and said in a heavy voice, "I'm afraid the old master won't be able to hold on for more than a few years. All of this is because of you. You're telling the truth." Su-yi looked at Su Jingting, his eyes fixed on him, his hands clenched tightly. Although he knew his grandfather had done so much for him, Su-yi did not expect the consequences to be so serious. "You think I would joke about this?" Su Jingting looked at Su-yi and said in a heavy voice. Su-yi did not speak. His hands were clenched so tightly that his nails dug into his palms, but he did not feel the slightest pain. "Whether you go to the Sacred Mountain or not, it's your choice. But you should know that if you go to the Sacred Mountain, your days won't be easy. Go back." Su Jingting waved his sleeve. Su-yi's eyes were heavy, his eyes suffused with a hint of blood. Then he slowly walked away. Deep in the night, the Su family was brightly lit. "Young Master Su-yi." Along the way, the servants and guards of the Su family treated Su-yi with a completely different attitude. They were very warm and respectful. Su-yi nodded. His thoughts were faintly discernible. Unwittingly, he arrived outside his grandfather's courtyard. Looking at the quiet courtyard shrouded in darkness, Su-yi stopped. Injuries on top of injuries. Perhaps his grandfather was still healing. If not for him, his grandfather would not have fought with Wang Chuanda and would not have healed him. If it was as his uncle said, then his grandfather would not have the opportunity to advance any further. At worst, he would only be able to persist for a few more years. Grandfather, Su-yi muttered. If that was really the case, then how could he face his grandfather? Su-yi felt guilty and blamed himself. If he could turn back time, he would not have cared about the qualifications of a servant. He would not have had to worry about it. He would not have had to mention the marriage agreement with the Liu family. Then the current situation would not have happened. But time cannot be turned back. There is no medicine for regret in this world. Su-yi was well aware of this point. I want to become strong. When that day comes, I will definitely find the legendary medicinal pill and heal my grandfather. I will let him advance one step further. Original initial B, or after a while. Su-yi raised his eyes and looked at the bright moon in the sky. His eyes flashed with determination. Facing the courtyard, Su-yi knelt down and respectfully kowtowed 3 times. Then he turned and left, disappearing into the night. This child, in a room in the courtyard, the window was slightly open. Through the gap, Su-yi and Tian looked at the thin figure leaving. Under the moonlight, the figure was abnormally tall and straight. The corner of his eyes revealed a smile. This night, the barbarian city was very lively, especially among the major clans. Song Clan, He Clan, and the others. There would be people going to the Holy Mountain tomorrow morning. To these clans, this was definitely a big event. Naturally, there were all kinds of expectations and requests. The next morning, the darkness before dawn had just passed. Su-yi, who was lying on the bed, stopped his breathing and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His face was even redder, as if he had completely recovered. You're going to the Holy Mountain? After a while, when Wanner brought breakfast to Su-yi's room, she was stunned when she heard that Su-yi had decided to go to the Holy Mountain. Yes, I'm going to the Holy Mountain. At least 1 or 2 years, at most 3 or 4 years, I'll definitely be back. You have to take good care of yourself in the Su clan. Su-yi stroked Wanner's hair. Grandpa's injuries were very serious. He had to become strong as soon as possible and find the legendary high-grade Dan for Grandpa. But brother, if you go to the Holy Mountain, I'm afraid. I heard that the people there are not that good. Wanner also heard about the situation at the square 2 days ago. Lu Ruashi was still in the Holy Mountain. Now that she heard that Su-yi was going to the Holy Mountain, she couldn't help but worry. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. Su-yi smiled faintly at Wan. Although he didn't have a good impression of the Holy Mountain, he knew that once he went there would be a lot of trouble. Wang Chuanda, Ji Chao, and the others were already difficult to deal with. They would definitely make things difficult for him, let alone the entire Holy Mountain. Chapter 37. Looking at the current situation, other than going to the Holy Mountain, there was no better way. If he could become strong soon, maybe he would have a chance to obtain the legendary high-grade pills on the Holy Mountain. So what if he went to the Holy Mountain? He had persevered in the savage demon forest for 3 years. There was nothing to worry about. Brother, Wanner was still worried. Wait for me to come back. If someone in the Su family bullies you, go find Fatty Wang. He's reliable. Su-yi interrupted Wanner. Wanner was very worried and was about to cry, but she still urged Su-yi to eat breakfast and then helped Su-yi pack his luggage. When Su-yi arrived at the gate of the Su family, Su Jingting and many of the Su family elders were already waiting. When they saw Su-yi, there was a slight surprise in everyone's eyes. Su Jingting was no exception. He was very surprised. He could see that Su-yi's injuries seemed to be much better than last night. But Su Jingting's surprise did not leave a trace, and he immediately recovered his calmness. But Su Wei's gaze was very complicated and cold, especially when he saw that Su-yi seemed to be fine. Su Wei's expression became even more unsightly. 2 days ago, his injuries were not light, but this kid seemed to have completely recovered. I decided to go to the Holy Mountain. But can I ask Uncle for a favor? He came in front of Su Jingting and said seriously, "Say it." Su Jingting was secretly stunned. Ever since he was young, this kid had never talked to him like this before. Waner is Su Yi's little sister. I hope that after I go to the Holy Mountain, she will also be my little sister, Su Yi said to Su Jingting. The only thing he was worried about was Waner. She did not know how to cultivate and was just an ordinary person. At that time, Su Yi himself could not cultivate, so he did not pay attention to Waner. Su Yi thought that when he became strong in the future, he must find a way to let Waner become a warrior. This way, at least Waner would have more ability to protect herself in the future. Su Jingting stared at Su Yi. After a few breaths of time, he looked up at the surrounding Su clan members and said, "Everyone, listen up. From today onwards, Su Wan is the eldest young lady of the Su clan." Yes, patriarch. The surrounding servants and guards didn't find it strange. This matter had long been spread around. However, at this moment, some of the elders and clansmen of the Su family were somewhat surprised that the patriarch had personally spoken. "Are you satisfied now?" Su Jingting looked at Su Yi. "Many thanks, uncle." Su Yi nodded. "Let's go." "It's about time," Su Jingting said. In front of the gate of the Liu clan, on the spacious square, there was a huge, savage beast that was almost 30 meters long lying on the ground. Its wings were folded, and its bright feathers were suffused with a luster. It looked like an eagle, but its huge head was like a wolf or a tiger, and it emitted a fierce and powerful aura. This should already be a demonic beast, right? So strong. This is Sacred Mountain's mount. That day I saw it with my own eyes. It was this demonic beast that came riding Sacred Mountain's mount. This mount, I'm afraid it's already at the demon profound realm. I'm afraid it's at least at the demon spirit realm. Outside of the Liu clan's gate, there were many onlookers. Looking at such a huge, savage beast, they were all shocked. The various clans arrived one after another and gathered at the Liu clan's gate. When Su Yi and Su Wei arrived at the Liu clan under the lead of Su Jingting and some of the Su clan's elders, the He clan, Song clan, and Mo clan had also arrived. Everyone looked at Su Yi, whose face was rosy and didn't look like he had suffered a serious injury the day before. They couldn't help but be shocked. When He San, Song Wuchio, and Mo Bufan saw Su Yi, they didn't look like they wanted to continue fighting or killing. In fact, the three of them secretly smacked their lips. The battle between Su Yi and Ji Chao the day before yesterday still left them with some lingering fear. They were glad that they didn't encounter that scourge. Otherwise, they would have been in a worse state. Looking at Su Yi, Song Wuchio, He San, and Mo Bufan were a lot more amiable. At the very least, this scourge had gained some face for the barbarian city. Regarding Ji Chao's arrogance, they were also very unhappy. "Nephew, are you all right?" When Mo Lai, He Quan, and Song Ming saw Su Yi, they were very courteous. They wanted to take a closer look at Su Yi. 2 days ago, he was so seriously injured that he even fainted. Did he really recover so quickly? "Thank you for your concern, uncles. It's just a small injury. I'm fine now." Su Yi nodded and smiled. "That's too abnormal." Feeling that Su Yi was completely fine, Mo Lai and the others were secretly smacking their lips. Su Yi, someone called out. Su Yi turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. A familiar fatty appeared before his eyes. It was Wang Shangwu, Fatty Wang. "You also want to go to the Holy Mountain?" Fatty Wang squeezed out of the crowd and was surprised to see that Su Yi seemed to want to go to the Holy Mountain. 2 days ago, this guy had thoroughly offended the people of the Holy Mountain. If he went to the Holy Mountain again, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? Of course. Su Yi smiled indifferently. "Then you have to be careful." Fatty Wang helplessly looked at Su Yi and smiled bitterly. He was also very happy. "I went to the Su clan yesterday, but they said that you were recuperating, so I couldn't go in. But looking at you now, it's good that you're fine." Su Yi patted Fatty Wang's shoulder. He knew very well that this was his best friend since childhood. He smiled and said, "How about you do me a favor? Do you want to borrow money?" I only have this much on me. Take it all. Fatty Wong said nothing and took out his money bag. When Sui asked him for help before, it seemed that it was mostly to borrow money. /B. It seemed like a normal action, but at this moment, it warmed Su Yi's heart. I don't want to borrow money. I want you to help me take care of Wanner. Take care of her like a sister. Can you do it? Sui looked at Fatty Wong and asked seriously. Don't worry, I will definitely take care of Wanner like your wife. Fatty Wong looked at Su Yi and nodded seriously. Su Yi rolled his eyes and glanced at Fatty Wong. Fatty Wong, he said, if there comes a day when I become a powerful expert, you will also be my brother, the best brother in my life. Fatty Wong sighed. Fatty Wong didn't believe that Su Yi could become strong, but the scene in the square the day before yesterday made him somewhat suspicious. He smiled and said, Don't worry, whether you become strong or not, you will always be my brother. At this moment, Fatty Wong naturally didn't know that because of these words. Not long after, when Fatty Wong was humiliated, Su Yi personally led an army of 1,000,000, along with a group of experts, and in a rage, massacred the 3 great sects, shocking the entire continent. But this was a story for later. Good. Su Yi smiled and patted Fatty Wong's shoulder. When you go to the sacred mountain, be careful of Lu Ruashi. Also, that Ji Chao won't let you have an easy time. You have to be careful. Fatty Wong stuck his head out and whispered into Su Yi's ear. Chapter 38. Protector Wong. Outside the Lu family, the crowd was in an uproar. Protector Wang Chuanda and Lu Zongyuan walked out. The major families warmly welcomed them, hoping that Wang Chuanda would take care of their family members in the sacred mountain in the future. Wang Chuanda stood outside the gate of the Lu family, surrounded by the crowd. He had a smile on his face, but his eyes were searching for something in the crowd. In the end, his gaze landed on Su Yi without leaving a trace, and then his expression became calm again. Get on the mount, sit in the middle, and gently hold the feather. The experts of the sacred mountain let Lu Yani, Hisan, Emote Buffon, and the others jump on the savage beast mounts. Go. I will take care of one like my own sister, Fatty Wong said to Su Yi. Su Yi waved his hand, appearing very free and easy. He arrived in front of the savage beast mount, and like Hisan and Song Wuchio, he jumped and climbed on the savage beast mount. The strength of this savage beast is already very strong. Su Yi sat on the back of the savage beast, feeling the aura of the savage beast. It was incomparably powerful and very frightening. In the savage demon forest, although there were countless savage beasts, but to be able to subdue such a powerful savage beast as a mount, it was enough to prove that the sacred mountain was really not ordinary. One day, to be able to subdue an even more powerful savage beast as a mount, it should be quite impressive, Su Yi muttered in his heart. Whoosh whoosh, as Su Yi muttered, several young sacred mountain disciples had disdainful looks on their faces as Yuan power rippled under their feet. Rays of light flickered as their figures gracefully landed on the back of their savage beast mounts. They stood in an orderly fashion as they faced Hisan, Lu Yani, and the rest with an air of arrogance. But when these disciples of the sacred mountain saw Su Yi, their arrogant faces could not help but secretly twitch, especially when they saw that Su Yi seemed to be completely unharmed. His complexion was rosy, and he was calm and composed. They were even more shocked. It should be known that Ji Chao had taken a lot of pills from the sacred mountain, but he only recovered a little. At this moment, Ji Chao also mounted his mount. When he looked at Su Yi, the expression on his face was extremely complicated and cold. A young girl of about 16 or 17 years old stood beside Su Yi. Her gaze fell on Su Yi, and she smiled faintly. It was hard to tell if it was intentional or not. Su Yi looked at the young girl in front of him. Her lips were like cherry blossoms, and her eyebrows were like ink paintings. She was about 16 or 17 years old, but she had already grown into a slender and elegant woman. Especially her slender and beautiful legs, her towering chest, and her slim waist outlined a moving arc that made people unable to help but take a few more glances. Did you know me before? Why are you looking at me like that? Su Yi remembered that this girl was a disciple of the sacred mountain. Looking at her smile, he didn't seem to know her before. No, but I've heard of him. The young girl smiled and looked at Su Yi. My name is Li Ling. If you have the chance in the future, you can also call me senior sister. Then we'll talk about it in the future. Su Yi twitched his mouth. It was better to stay away from the people of the sacred mountain. After speaking to Li Ling, the other disciples of the sacred mountain were already staring at him. Everyone, farewell. I see the Eon's specified currency V on version/chapter/section. Wang Xuanda leapt onto the savage beast mount, a smile in his eyes. After bidding farewell to Lu Zongyuan and the others, he shook his arm. It was unknown what kind of instructions the gigantic savage beast received, but it immediately roared and flapped its wings. Ayo! The savage beast roared, flapping its wings, the luster of its feathers spreading out. A powerful aura fluctuated, and as it flapped its wings, a powerful air current rippled like a tornado, soaring into the sky. On the back of the savage beast mount, Su Yi's body trembled, and he immediately pulled on the savage beast's feathers tightly. The gigantic savage beast flapped its wings, incomparably ferocious, and flew away. Such a movement caused the entire barbarian city to be shaken. Everyone lifted their heads, their eyes filled with envy. Everyone knew that as long as one entered the sacred mountain, they were destined to become strong. The worst would be able to become a giant of a region. The savage beast mount flapped its wings, its speed extremely fast. Su Yi's clothes fluttered in the wind. He could only feel the whistling of the air around him, causing his face to hurt. After a while, he gradually got used to it. From the barbarian city to the sacred mountain, with the speed of the cloud-piercing wolf eagle, we can arrive in 10 days. In the middle, we will pass through the most dangerous parts of the barbarian demon forest and the chaos region. But for our sacred mountain, it is actually very safe. No matter if it is the people of the barbarian demon forest or the chaos region, they will not dare to do anything in front of our sacred mountain. On the back of the savage beast, Protector Wang Xuanda said to Su Yi and the others. When he mentioned the sacred mountain, there was a kind of pride on his face. No matter if it was the barbarian demon forest or the chaos region, in front of the sacred mountain, they would not dare to do anything. 10 days to arrive. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. So this savage beast mount was called the cloud-piercing wolf eagle. Its speed was extremely fast, and it would not have a problem traveling thousands of li in a day. But 10 days to arrive at the sacred mountain, this distance was not ordinary. Everyone take a good rest. Protector Wang Xuanda said. His gaze swept over Su Yi, intentionally or unintentionally. He then sat down cross-legged in front of the cloud-piercing wolf eagle and did not pay attention to the others. Ayo! The cloud-piercing wolf eagle flapped its wings and flew in the void. Occasionally, a deafening roar could be heard. Everyone gradually sat down cross-legged and adjusted their breathing. Although 10 days was not a short time, it was not a long time for cultivators. The cloud-piercing wolf eagle could not fly continuously without rest. It needed to rest twice a day and night. Su Yi sat cross-legged on the back of the cloud-piercing wolf eagle. In these 3 days, he was secretly circulating the Origin Supreme technique to adjust his breathing. In his mind, he was carefully comprehending everything about the Origin Supreme technique. We are now in the barbarian demon forest. There are many savage beasts here, and there are also powerful savage beasts. Everyone should be careful. Do not be careless. 3 days later, in a valley in the continuous mountain range, Protector Wang Xuanda said to everyone, "Rest for 4 hours, then we will continue." Su Yi jumped off the cloud-piercing wolf eagle and stretched his back. After 3 days of using the Origin Supreme technique, he had already recovered to a perfect state. I think when you arrive at the sacred mountain, many people will be interested. Li Ling walked past Su Yi and smiled. It was incomparably beautiful. In the continuous mountain range, the mountain peaks were connected. Ayo! In the depths of the mountain range, there were low roars of beasts. In a valley, there were dozens of figures gathered. Their bodies were faintly discernible and filled with a fierce, bloody aura. This kind of aura, if not for the fact that they live a life of licking blood from the tip of a blade, it would be difficult to exist. Captain, I saw him. He has a cloud-piercing wolf eagle as a mount. His background should not be simple. Should we do this? Chapter 39. The short-clothed, middle-aged man had a medium build, a wide forehead, and a big face. His eyes shone brightly, as if he was pondering something. Then he asked, "How many people are there? Did you see where they came from?" "I don't know where they came from, but they brought a lot of raw melon eggs. There shouldn't be many of them with real strength. I'm guessing that some sect brought people here to temper themselves." The robust man looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Leader, this is a great opportunity. Those who can have cloud wolf eagles as mounts must have some treasures on them. Our brothers have already been out for half a month, but we didn't get anything this time. We can't miss this opportunity." The middle-aged man pondered. Those who could have cloud wolf eagles as mounts must not have simple backgrounds. If they couldn't take them down, there would be endless trouble in the future. "Leader, riches and honor come from danger. Those who brought raw melon eggs to temper themselves can't be that strong. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to the barbaric demon forest." The robust man said, seeming to be very interested. "Okay, everyone get ready. Let's go." The short-clothed, middle-aged man clenched his teeth and made a decision. Barbaric demon forest, a familiar feeling. In the valley, Su-Yi stretched. This was a familiar place. As soon as he arrived, he immediately felt a sense of familiarity. This doesn't seem to be normal. Looking around, Su-Yi suddenly felt an unusual aura. After 3 years in the barbaric demon forest, this aura was too familiar. Subconsciously retreating a bit, Su-Yi used the valley's terrain to get close to a huge rock. He could advance or retreat here. He carefully looked around. Outside the valley, there was only a small path. The surrounding cliffs overlapped, and huge trees were dense. Su-Yi frowned. If there was a sneak attack, it would definitely be a dead end. But after thinking about it, Su-Yi felt that it wasn't very likely. No one should dare to make a move on people from the Sacred Mountain. But Su-Yi still didn't let down his guard. He approached the rock. The aura in the surroundings was too strange. There were no birds in the vicinity. Even if a cloud-piercing wolf eagle came over, it should have attracted a lot of attention, unless there was someone hiding in the vicinity. In the valley, everyone got off the cloud-piercing wolf eagle and stretched. After the crowd walked around, they sat down cross-legged and waited for the cloud-piercing wolf eagle to rest. The one who had it the hardest wasn't the group, but the cloud-piercing wolf eagle. "Be careful." Suddenly, Guardian Wang Chuanda, who was sitting cross-legged, seemed to have discovered something. His slightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and light filled the air. He immediately stood up. Whoosh whoosh. Behind Protector Wang Chuanda, those from the Sacred Mountain also changed their expressions and prepared for battle. The disciples of the Sacred Mountain also changed their aura in an instant as they prepared for battle. "What's going on? Is it dangerous?" He-san, Song Wuchio, Mo Buffon, and the others were obviously flustered. They had never experienced such a situation before. Chila. Suddenly, a slight trembling sound came from the small path in front of the valley. Everyone's gazes immediately turned towards that direction. Whoosh! Rustling sounds could be heard from the dense, towering trees around the valley, causing the forest to shake. "It's a mercenary group?" Su-Yi frowned. This style was too familiar. It was the usual style of the mercenary groups in the barbarian demon forest. It was definitely a mercenary group. In the barbarian demon forest, there were many mercenary groups, ranging from a few dozen people to a few hundred people. They looked for herbs, hunted savage beasts, and obtained their skins and special materials to make a living. There were also some mercenary groups that didn't care much about the rules. In a place like the barbarian demon forest, robbing, and so on were common occurrences. In short, in the barbarian demon forest, everything was decided by strength. Whoosh whoosh! Suddenly, many figures rushed out one after another from all directions. A fierce aura gushed out, and a total of 40 to 50 figures rushed out directly. In front of the valley, several figures with powerful aura walked out together. In the middle was a middle-aged man in short clothes. His aura was fierce, and his eyes were shining as he stared at the people in the valley. The middle-aged man in short clothes looked at Wang Chuanda and the others. When he noticed the insignia on Wang Chuanda and the others' clothes, his expression changed. Hee, leader, there are a few kids that are not bad. This time, the harvest is not bad. Beside the middle-aged man in short clothes, someone looked at Lu Yanni, Lin Lin, and the other girls. His eyes suddenly lit up, and his face was filled with joy. Hand over your treasures and leave all your women behind. Otherwise, we won't be polite to you. Someone roared and sneered. There were only a dozen people, and they even brought a dozen melon eggs. How could they be a match for them? This trip was going to make them rich. You overestimate yourselves. How dare you be impudent in front of the holy mountain? Beside Wang Chuanda, the middle-aged man who was in charge of testing everyone's talent in the barbarian city a few days ago had a fierce expression. He glanced around coldly, and it seemed that he didn't care about the dozens of figures around the valley. Holy mountain! When these two words came out, the dozens of figures who were sneering and shouting suddenly changed their expressions. The two words, holy mountain, were like 100,000 mountains, and it suddenly crushed everyone's heart. At this moment, the leader of the short-clothed man's face was trembling violently as he turned pale with fright. Friends from the holy mountain, this is all a misunderstanding. We will leave now. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed, and he immediately smiled apologetically. He would never have thought that the people who came were actually from the holy mountain. A motley crew. You even dare to have ideas about the holy mountain. Since you are here, there is no need to leave. Wang Chuanda glanced at the dozens of figures around the valley, and a faint sneer appeared on his face. Hearing this, the dozens of figures in the mercenary group secretly changed their expressions, and they secretly retreated. Friends from Holy Mountain, this is the barbarian demon forest. We didn't mean to offend, so why are you so aggressive? The middle-aged man in short clothes frowned slightly. E*L version, square root F version, square root F version. You are the ones who don't have eyes, so you have to pay the price. Wang Chuanda said indifferently, as if he didn't intend to let them go. Friend, do you really want both sides to suffer? You don't seem to have much of an advantage. The middle-aged man in short clothes secretly had a fierce expression. After rolling around in the barbarian demon forest for such a long time, as the leader of the mercenary group, if he was too cowardly, how could he convince others in the future? Moreover, with his cultivation and strength, even in the entire barbarian demon forest, he was definitely a top figure. You think too highly of yourself. Wang Chuanda sneered, and a cold light flashed from the corner of his mouth as he looked at the dozens of figures around him. Wolf, eagle, kill. When his voice fell, Wang Chuanda waved his sleeves, and killing intent surged out from his eyes. Chapter 40. Demon Spirit Realm. When the aura of the cloud-piercing wolf-eagle exploded, the middle-aged man's face instantly changed. A cloud-piercing wolf-eagle in the demon spirit realm is definitely a terrifying beast. It's very hard to deal with, not to mention the fact that the cloud-piercing wolf-eagle is in the demon spirit realm. Illo! The cloud-piercing wolf-eagle roared and instantly launched a fierce attack. It flapped its wings and roared, creating a gale as it swooped down, tearing apart several mercenaries on the spot. Blood splattered all over the ground. The sudden change made these mercenaries, who often live their lives on the edge of the blade, tremble in fear and feel their hair stand on end. Illo! The cloud-piercing wolf-eagle didn't stop its attack. Its roar was deafening, echoing throughout the valley, causing the roar of other savage beasts to echo from afar. Whoosh! The cloud-piercing wolf-eagle flapped its wings and swooped down once again. In the blink of an eye, it launched another attack. Its sharp teeth and iron claws tore through the air like a ferocious beast. Not good, retreat. It's too strong, retreat quickly. There were already people whose faces had changed in panic and wanted to retreat immediately. Overestimating yourselves, kill. The middle-aged men and women from the sacred mountain revealed a fierce expression and also launched an attack. Profound chi formed under their feet, and the roars of beasts could be heard. They were all origin spirit realm cultivators. Don't panic. Attack together, quick. The middle-aged man immediately recovered from his shock. For him to be able to form this mercenary group in the barbaric demon forest, other than having outstanding strength, his own qualities were also extremely strong. Catch those raw melon eggs for me. Catch a few more. At the same time, the middle-aged man coldly shouted. Although the strength of these people from the Sacred Mountain wasn't bad, the mercenary group also had a few origin spirit realm cultivators. Although their cultivation was still slightly low, it wasn't to the point where they would be captured without putting up a fight. Moreover, in this situation, if they could capture a few of the Sacred Mountain's eggs as hostages, they might be able to turn the situation around. Attack together, everyone, don't panic. As the middle-aged man's voice fell, the originally panicked mercenary group immediately became much more orderly. Leader, let's deal with this cloud-piercing wolf-eagle. 2 origin spirit realm cultivators from the mercenary group blocked the cloud-piercing wolf-eagle. The remaining mercenaries immediately stared at the group of young men and women. Thief! The young men and women of Sacred Mountain had cold looks in their eyes. Their auras surged as they unsheathed their weapons. Although they were young, they weren't comparable to ordinary mercenaries. On the other hand, Hisan, Imo, Buffon, Song Wuchio, Lu Yani, and the other young men and women who came with him from Man City were much more flustered. You're courting death. Wang Chuanda made his move. His yuan chi surged, and his silhouette flashed out. A palm imprint descended, and a few of the burly men from the mercenary group were sent flying, landing heavily in the distance. Roar! The cloud-piercing wolf-eagle roared. Although it was being held back by the 2 essence spirit stage practitioners of the mercenary band, it took the opportunity to open its ferocious mouth and bite down on the 2 mercenary band members who were not strong enough. Fresh blood flowed out from the sharp fangs and dyed the ground red. Anyone who saw it couldn't help but tremble. This scene made Hisan, Lu Yani, and the others shiver. Catch those raw melon eggs and let them live. The man in short robe shouted. The situation was urgent, and only by capturing a few hostages could they resolve the crisis. Sacred Mountain had started a massacre, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Chapter Z. On Section 1, when a man in short robes finished speaking and saw Wang Chuanda kill a few of his mercenary band members, Yuan Chi surged out from his feet. His feet touched the ground, and a beast bone as thick as an arm appeared in his hand. One side of the beast bone was polished to an incomparably sharp point, but as Yuan Chi surged into it, the beast bone shone brightly and carried a ferocious beast aura as it blocked Wang Chuanda's attack. That's barely enough. Wang Chuanda seemed to be surprised by the strength of the man in short robes. It wasn't easy to meet someone of this level in Man-Demon Forest. With a cold smile, Wang Chuanda raised his arm to meet the man. Rumble! The battle was chaotic. The several essence spirit stage practitioners of Sacred Mountain seemed to have an invisible tacit understanding as they formed a circular formation to protect the young men they brought with them. In addition, Li Ling and the other Sacred Mountain disciples weren't weak to begin with. It wasn't much of a problem for them to deal with the mercenary band members. On the contrary, the mercenary band members were rapidly decreasing. Behind a rock, Su Yi crouched on the side, sizing up the battlefield. At this moment, Su Yi was the clearest about the situation. Although the mercenary band had the advantage in numbers, their momentum was completely inferior to Sacred Mountain. However, Sacred Mountain's people weren't having a good time either. Every member of this mercenary band had climbed and rolled on the tip of a blade. In the face of absolute strength, they were naturally inferior to Sacred Mountain. However, Sacred Mountain's people had to protect a lot of young men after all. These young men, even if they were disciples of Sacred Mountain, although their strength was already impressive, their actual combat experience was far from enough. At this moment, these Sacred Mountain's disciples couldn't help but appear somewhat inadequate in front of these mercenary band members. This made the several Essence Spirit Stage practitioners of Sacred Mountain have no choice but to divert their attention to take care of them. Therefore, although it seemed that Sacred Mountain had the upper hand, they had actually fallen into a small stalemate. Su-yi crouched on the ground, knowing where to hide. In the current chaos, no one would notice him. Thud thud, not far away, the short-clothed man of the mercenary band was no match for Wang Chuanda and was forced to retreat. At the same time, the short-clothed man stamped one foot on the ground to stop his momentum. The ground beneath his feet cracked, and the animal bone in his hand glowed again. Faintly, the animal bone carried a different kind of ferocious aura, as if a fierce beast had been resurrected. The wind whistled, and a beast roared like thunder, blocking Wang Chuanda's path once again. Humph! Wang Chuanda snorted coldly. Without any hesitation, vigorous yuan qi burst out from his body. A powerful aura swept out, shaking the surrounding stones and weeds and sending them flying. His palm struck directly at the middle-aged man's animal bone. Thud! The middle-aged man's animal bone dimmed. Under the powerful impact, his body was once again forced to retreat. This doesn't look good. At this moment, Su-yi crouched under the rock. His expression suddenly became somewhat unsightly. The short-clothed, middle-aged man of the mercenary band was forced to retreat again and again. Unfortunately, he had already retreated to his side. Let me see how strong Sacred Mountain is. After suffering a series of setbacks and losing brothers of the mercenary band, the short-clothed, middle-aged man was enraged. With a loud shout, yuan qi surged. Wisps of black yuan qi lingered on the surface of his body like spirit snakes, and finally converged into the sharp animal bone in his hand. Roar! At this moment, the animal bone shone with a dazzling light, and the roar of a beast could already be heard. Its aura skyrocketed, shaking the void and causing a terrifying disturbance. Chapter 41. Child's Play. Although Wang Chuanda's complexion changed slightly, his expression remained calm. He waved his hand, and a vigorous yuan qi gushed out from his palm like a torrent, fiercely colliding with the animal bone. Walala! In the midst of this collision, a ripple of energy spread out like a violent wave from the collision. Bang, bang, bang. The surrounding rocks crumbled, trees snapped, and the ground cracked, accompanied by muffled sounds like thunder. Bastard, I'm in trouble. But at this moment, just as the middle-aged man in short clothes threw out the animal bone with all his strength, Su-yi's complexion changed greatly. His cat-like body suddenly broke into a run, and like an arrow leaving the bow, he directly drilled into the escape route that he had already noticed. Su-yi's escape route was a deep forest next to the valley. It was densely covered with towering trees and dense thorns. Su-yi was very clear that his strength was not enough. If he wanted to escape on a flat road, he was afraid that it would be impossible even in his dreams. Sure enough, as Su-yi's body swept out, the middle-aged man in short clothes directly rushed towards the hiding Su-yi. He had already noticed that a teenager was hiding nearby, so he made a feint in front of Wang Chuanda. If he could capture this teenager, he might be able to turn the situation around. Run! There was only one word in Su-yi's mind. The leader of the mercenary group was actually targeting him. At this moment, he could only escape with all his strength, hoping that Wang Chuanda could immediately catch up, and then he would be able to escape. In the dense thorns, Su-yi zigzagged left and right. This method of escape was something that he had learned from countless practical experiences. Now that Su-yi's cultivation had reached the soul essence realm, he erupted with all his strength, as if his whole body had inexhaustible strength. In a flash, he drilled into the deep forest, shuttling back and forth for dozens of feet. The middle-aged man in short clothes of the mercenary group originally thought that he would be able to catch the teenager by surprise, and then he would be able to threaten the Sacred Mountain. However, the short-sleeved middle-aged man did not expect the young man to react so quickly and escape in such a crafty manner. This caused him to be secretly stunned. However, the difference in their cultivation levels was too great. The short-robed, middle-aged man from the mercenary group was also a master of the barbaric demon forest. He instantly chased after Su-Yi. Essence chi surged from his body like a mini-storm. Everywhere he passed, the thorns on the ground would be shattered. He was about to catch up to Su. Boom! An energy attack landed at the feet of the middle-aged man in short clothes. The surrounding rubble on the ground violently shot out. Under the huge impact, the middle-aged man in short clothes staggered forward, causing Su-Yi to once again be unable to escape far away. The middle-aged man's expression changed greatly. He did not hesitate at all. Only by capturing the young man in front of him would he have a chance. Therefore, at this moment, the middle-aged man didn't even think about it and directly chased after Su-Yi with all his strength. In this moment of delay, Su-Yi's speed was also very fast. However, the cultivation of the middle-aged man in short clothes was not something that Su-Yi could compare with. Although he could not jump and chase after Su-Yi in the deep forest, he was still as fast as lightning. Bang! Just when Su-Yi was in imminent danger, Wang Xuanda's attack once again swept over, once again causing the middle-aged man in short clothes to stagger. The three people's chase gradually increased the distance between them and the battle in the valley behind them. Already, they could only hear the roars and muffled sounds from the distance. Kid, let's see where you can run now. The middle-aged man in short clothes' eyes were cold. He was the last one to explode. His face was gloomy and fierce. He stretched out his hand and clawed directly at Su-Yi's shoulder. In a flash, the fierce power of the claw fell on Su-Yi's shoulder like a steel hoop. In a flash, Su-Yi was stopped in his tracks. He could no longer move an inch. The profound chi in his body also seemed to have been frozen. In the palm of the middle-aged man in long clothes, a dagger appeared. But at this moment, Su-Yi discovered that he could not move at all. The moment he caught Su-Yi, the middle-aged man in short clothes was overjoyed. Before he could even turn around, he yelled, "Stop, or I'll kill this kid." You think too much. But at the same time, Wang Xuanda's figure appeared behind the middle-aged man like a ghost. Without making a sound, his hand directly grabbed the middle-aged man's neck. At this moment, the middle-aged man in short clothes seemed to have sensed something. His expression changed, as if he had seen a ghost. His face was full of disbelief. How can this be? You've just stepped into the first stage of Yuanjin's stage. How can you be my opponent? These words fell into the middle-aged man's ears. A "Kacha" sound was heard from his neck. Kacha! The middle-aged man in short clothes fell to the ground. The shock in his eyes had not completely disappeared. The claw fell on Su-Yi's shoulder. Blood seeped out from the 5 fingers on his shoulder. He raised his eyes to look at Wang Xuanda. Su-Yi's eyes were vigilant. Ignoring the fact that he had just escaped death, he immediately retreated a few steps. I didn't think the opportunity would come so quickly. Looking at Su-Yi, Wang Xuanda's eyes revealed a cold smile. You did it on purpose? Su-Yi's eyes darkened. How could he not understand that the leader of this mercenary regiment was not Wang Xuanda's opponent? If Wang Xuanda had wanted to kill the middle-aged man in short clothes, the middle-aged man in short clothes would not have been his opponent. And Wang Xuanda had purposely created an opportunity for him to escape from the mercenary regiment's leader. Most likely, he wanted to avoid everyone's eyes. All of this was enough to prove that Wang Xuanda had some unspeakable secret to do. Audiobook W Original Chapter Z, Section 9% P. Kid, you're pretty smart. But what a pity. Wang Xuanda smiled faintly. An invisible aura swept out and immediately enveloped Su-Yi's body. A handprint then grabbed Su-Yi's shoulder. Along with the corpse of the middle-aged man in short clothes, Wang Xuanda's figure shuttled through the forest. Wang Xuanda wants to kill me to silence me. Su-Yi was imprisoned by an invisible force. In a moment of desperation, he did not panic. On the contrary, he was exceptionally calm. Su-Yi pondered in his heart. If Wang Xuanda wanted to silence him, then other than his engagement with Lu Ruoxi, there should be no other reason. with his body imprisoned and Wang Chuanda holding him in the palm of his hand. He was completely unable to move. He also could not mobilize his internal force at all. This is what it means to be strong. I'm too weak. I'm like a fish on a chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. He realized that at this moment, he was like a fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. In this world where martial arts flourished, strength was the absolute truth. A moment later, they were shuttling through the deep forest. He felt that Wang Chuanda seemed to have ascended to a high ground after a few leaps. Sure enough, when he was thrown to the ground by Wang Chuanda, he arrived at a cliff. The surroundings were misty, and the cliff towered into the clouds. Swish! Wang Chuanda threw the corpse of the middle-aged man in short clothes down the cliff. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.